Hey everyone, just a quick heads up before the video starts. I've been dealing with some insane headaches lately, so I'm uploading this a bit earlier than planned. It's not fully finished, but it's long enough to count, and honestly, if I waited until it was perfect, you probably wouldn't be seeing this for a while. So consider this an early treat, or maybe just me being influenced by the pounding in my skull. Either way, I hope you enjoy it. I'll be back properly once my head stops trying to assassinate me. Until then, enjoy the video. Anakin stood silently in the center of his new ship, his presence a dark storm within the metallic chamber. Kalani approached, his mechanical steps echoing faintly against the polished floors. "My lord, there has been a development," the droid reported. Anakin's eyes narrowed behind the veil of his mask. "What is it?" "The ship has not been authorized to leave the spaceport," Kalani explained. "When I inquired as to the reason, I uncovered something troubling. Darth Jadda's flagship, the Dominator, was preparing to depart this system. It was to carry thousands of citizens on board. Reports suggest Jadda intended to explore the galaxy with them, using the journey to indoctrinate them into his ideology." Kalani's glowing photoreceptors flickered slightly as he continued. "However, the Dominator was completely destroyed before departure. New intelligence suggests it was an inside job. The destruction caused massive collateral damage to Kos City. Repairs are already estimated to be in the millions of credits." The droid's tone shifted, calculations running rapidly. "I calculate this incident may be connected to a terrorist cell." Anakin's mind spun with possibilities, a whirlwind of suspicion and fractured puzzles. So that's what Thrawn meant when he said the Dominator had been destroyed, Anakin thought. But something doesn't add up. Jadda is no fool. Judging from my meeting with him, he's far too cautious for something like this to happen so easily. His masked gaze sharpened. A Dark Council member would never allow his flagship to be compromised like that. The security measures alone would make an inside job nearly impossible. Could the Revanites have been involved in this attack? Anakin asked, turning to Kalani. "No, my lord," Kalani replied. "Revanite channels are in disarray. They seem just as confused as we are and are actively investigating whether any of their own were involved." The sudden, urgent beeping of the hollow projector filled the air, cutting through the tension. Anakin's brow furrowed beneath his mask, and even Vet, who had overheard the conversation, stepped closer out of curiosity. "Put it through, Kalani," Anakin ordered. Without hesitation, Kalani activated the projector. The blue-tinted hologram flickered to life, showing the image of a dark-skinned man wearing a hood. His voice was calm yet charged with fervor, his eyes gleaming with purpose. "Citizens of the Empire, this is the Eagle." His voice rang out, confident and unwavering. "I am here to tell you the truth. Our government is corrupt. When the Emperor signed his treaty with the Galactic Republic, we were promised a new epic glory unparalleled since the age of the First Sith Dynasty. Instead, our empire has withered, bled dry by the cowardice of our leaders." The man's passion surged as he spoke, every word cutting into the air like a blade. "Apathetic moths and power-hungry lords of the Dark Council claw and scheme for personal gain while our soldiers die on worthless planets and nameless systems. Our people deserve better." Anakin's jaw tightened beneath his mask. "Kalani, trace the origin of this broadcast now." "It will be done," Kalani replied, his photoreceptors flaring with cold determination. Anakin knew if this man succeeded in spreading his message, it would fracture the Empire from within. Disorder and chaos would follow, jeopardizing everything he had planned, even if, deep down, some of the Eagle's words carried a sliver of truth. The Eagle's voice continued to pour through the projector. "Anyone who speaks out in favor of reform is silenced, kidnapped, tortured, or worse by Imperial intelligence. This tyranny must end." "Kalani, what's the status?" Anakin demanded, his voice sharp. Kalani's systems hummed as the droid processed streams of encrypted data. "The Eagle has hacked directly into the Imperial HoloNet. His message is being broadcast across the entire Empire. His encryption is sophisticated. Tracing it will take time, Kalani admitted. The eagle's image flickered but his voice remained clear. A short while ago, a group of brave revolutionaries struck a blow against the corrupt heart of this empire. They destroyed an imperial dreadnought, the Dominator. 3,000 souls were aboard, including Darth Jadis himself, a lord of the Dark Council. We chose to strike Jadis publicly so every citizen would know the truth. The Dark Council is not invincible. The eagle's voice did not waver, even when speaking of the dead. We regret the loss of so many civilians, but it was necessary. The Empire can no longer cover up this momentous event. Imperial intelligence cannot silence our message. Our fight has only just begun. Anakin's mind worked quickly, sifting through the eagle's words, trying to assess the man behind the message. Was the eagle truly driven by righteous fury, or was this all a performance? His willingness to sacrifice thousands meant that either he saw this as a cause worth any cost or he simply didn't care. Perhaps, Anakin thought, the man secretly relished the death and chaos he was causing. Vet, standing off to the side, gave a low whistle. Gotta admit the guy knows how to put together a hell of a broadcast. Anakin didn't respond. His thoughts remained locked on the eagle's words. The hologram flickered again as the eagle's message neared its end. This is only the first step toward a better future, the eagle declared. Our agents are spread throughout the Empire, prepared to strike again, and again. We will not stop until the Empire chooses strength over weakness, unity over division. We will show the fury of the people until we break the chains binding us all. The hologram dimmed, then cut out entirely. For a brief moment, silence hung in the air. Kalani, did you trace the signal? Anakin inquired, his voice low and edged with restrained impatience. I have, Kalani answered without hesitation. The signal originates from Bomara, though I calculate a 95% probability it was rerouted there to mask the true origin. However, all data suggests this signal is directly connected to the Eagle's network. Anakin's mind stirred, wheels turning beneath the surface. Bomara, not exactly surprising, but it's a place to start. I can begin my hunt there. He inwardly sighed. Preferably, I wouldn't waste my time chasing insurgents, but I have no choice. This eagle, whether he knows it or not, is threatening my plans. Still, something gnawed at the edges of his thoughts, something far more elusive. Jadis. There's been no confirmed report of his body being found. If Jadis was somehow behind this, what would he even gain? Anakin's fingers drummed against the nearest console as the thought lingered. I have no proof, but this doesn't sit right. Until I see definitive evidence, I'll assume Jadis is alive. But all of that would have to wait. The Eagle was his priority. Before Anakin could give Kalani further instructions, the ship's holo projector emitted another rapid beeping. Put it through, Anakin said naturally, already anticipating the next twist in this unfolding storm. Kalani nodded, his mechanical fingers pressing the control panel on the holo table. The projector flared to life, casting a shimmering blue image. Thrawn appeared, clad in Imperial Agent tactical gear, black trench coat, hood drawn up, the very image of a ghost in the machine. Anakin's eyes narrowed beneath his mask. I assume you also saw the broadcast. Thrawn inclined his head, his expression calm but with a calculating glint in his eye. I did. I've been formally assigned to this case. I've been granted full authority to pursue it without oversight. His voice lowered slightly. From this moment on, I go by Cipher 9. In public, you will refer to me only by that code name. Privately, you may continue to address me as Thrawn. Anakin leaned slightly forward, intrigued but unsurprised. Thrawn's tone shifted, becoming almost conversational. I'd like to hear your personal opinion on this Eagle network. Anakin answered without hesitation. The Eagle is a dangerous threat not just to the Empire's stability, but to my plans. My droid General Kalani has already traced the broadcast signal to Bomara. Thrawn's fingers pressed into his temple briefly, massaging away tension. Interesting. I'll file that detail for later, but right now, I'm more interested in your thoughts on Jada's so-called death. The admission caught Anakin's attention, and for a brief moment, he sensed the unspoken tension they both shared. So, Anakin said, you've also noticed something off about the timing of Jada's death. Thrawn's response was a slight, knowing smile. Not much to say, Anakin continued. When I spoke to Jadis, he made his views perfectly clear. He believed that every Imperial citizen should exist in a constant state of fear, terror, and hatred, that these emotions would forge loyalty through fear of consequence. Anakin's brow furrowed behind his mask as he recalled those chilling words. He even hinted at potential rebellious actions against the Emperor himself. His death is too convenient, too unbelievable. Jadis isn't just a Dark Council member, he's regarded as second only to the Emperor himself. He's brilliant, calculating. There's no way he'd be caught off guard so easily. Thrawn's expression was thoughtful, his blue fingers steepled beneath his chin. So you, too, suspect Jadis is not truly dead. That confirms something I've been theorizing. Anakin's head tilted slightly. What, exactly? Thrawn's eyes gleamed with the satisfaction of a puzzle falling into place. Jadis' actions and his words strongly indicate he already knew the Eagle Network's activities before any of this happened. In fact, I'm increasingly convinced that he either created them directly or manipulated them into existence. Anakin's fingers curled into a fist. Explain. The Eagle Network embodies everything Jadis stands for, instilling terror, fear, and hatred into every Imperial heart. Whether the Eagle himself realizes it or not, his network is the perfect instrument to achieve Jadis' ideological goals. What better way to create widespread fear than to turn the citizens against their own government, to make them see enemies in every shadow? And by faking his death, Jadis removes himself from suspicion entirely, while the Eagle Network takes the blame for destabilizing the Empire. Thrawn's tone turned slightly cooler. Of course, I have no definitive proof. For now, it's speculative, but the pieces fit. Anakin's mind churned through the implications. It aligns with everything we know of Jadis so far, and it's exactly the kind of long game a Dark Council member of his caliber would play. But, Thrawn added, regardless of whether Jadis is alive or dead, dismantling the Eagle Network remains my priority. I'll need your assistance if you are willing. Anakin's brow lifted slightly beneath the mask. And what kind of assistance are you looking for? Thrawn's tone grew serious. With Jadis presumed dead, his only daughter and apprentice, Darth Zhorid, has inherited his seat on the Dark Council. She now controls the entire Imperial intelligence power base. Anakin blinked. That was unexpected. Jadis had a daughter? And an apprentice? The idea was almost absurd. It was impossible to picture someone like Jadis indulging in the concept of legacy. She's summoned me to Korriban, Thrawn continued, to meet her at the Sith Academy. Given your experience there, I'd like your assistance during this meeting. I believe your insight into Sith politics and your reputation could prove invaluable. Anakin considered it for a moment before nodding. I'll meet you there, but there's a problem. The spaceport here is on lockdown. Thrawn's holographic face remained calm. I'll handle that. The lockdown was ordered by Imperial intelligence, and as of now, I have the authority to grant you an exemption. Consider it lifted. Very well, Anakin said. I'll meet you there, Thrawn. Thrawn's expression flickered with something close to amusement. We'll see you soon, Skywalker. The hologram dissolved into static before fading out entirely. Anakin turned to his crew. Vet, you can rest on the ship for now. Kalani, resume your internal sweep and continue your investigation. Kalani gave a mechanical nod and silently left to carry out his orders. Vet stretched, already turning toward the corridor. Finally rest. Anakin moved toward the pilot's chair and settled into it, the hum of the ship's systems all around him. His fingers flew over the controls, activating the launch sequence. The ship lifted gracefully from the spaceport, ascending into the dark sky above Dermat. Through the viewport, a massive Imperial fleet loomed in orbit, a stark reminder of the Empire's iron grip on its capital world. It made sense the defense fleet over Dermat was always large, but now, in the wake of the Dominator's destruction, it was more like a wall of warships bristling with turbolasers. Anakin locked in the coordinates for Korriban and gripped the hyperspace lever. With a sharp pull, the stars stretched into brilliant white lines, and the ship surged forward into hyperspace. The hunt was on. The ship burst out of hyperspace, the vibrant swirl of stars giving way to the cold, ominous void surrounding Korriban. Anakin transmitted the clearance code without hesitation, his fingers moving with practiced ease across the controls. As the vessel glided toward the planet's atmosphere, Anakin's gaze swept over the massive Imperial fleet anchored in Korriban's orbit, a vast armada of star destroyers, frigates, and smaller escort vessels, all standing in silent, oppressive formation. His eyes flicked to a nearby space station, its skeletal frame partially obscured by the glare of the planet below, a testament to the Empire's ever-expanding presence in Sith space. The ship descended through the choking red skies of Korriban, the oppressive atmosphere wrapping around it like a shroud of ancient malice. Dust and sand swirled in chaotic patterns beneath the thrusters as the ship settled on a weathered landing pad, the dull clang of metal on stone reverberating in the thin air. The ramp lowered with a hiss, and Anakin stepped out into the dry, acrid wind, his cloak billowing slightly as he strode forward toward the Sith Academy. He hadn't expected to find himself back here so soon. The eerie familiarity of the desolate world tugged at memories he preferred to leave buried. As his boots carried him across the ancient stone, he briefly wondered if he would cross paths with Overseer Harkin, though it seemed unlikely. That arrogant little man was probably too busy tormenting and testing new acolytes to notice his return. The occasional acolyte paused at the sight of him, their gazes a mix of awe, suspicion, and confusion. A few whispered his name, recognizing the infamous Jedi-turned-Imperial figure, but Anakin ignored their prying eyes and hushed voices. He climbed the stone ramp leading up to the towering entrance of the Sith Academy, its jagged architecture jutting into the blood-red sky like the grasping claws of some ancient beast. Waiting at the top stood Thrawn, his blue skin contrasting starkly with the dark stone, and beside him, a woman who gave Anakin immediate pause. For a heartbeat, his mind whispered Ventress, but no, this woman was shorter, her facial tattoos different, her presence void of the pulsing darkness that Ventress carried like a second skin. No, this was someone else entirely. And more than that, she wasn't even force-sensitive, which made her presence at Thrawn's side all the more curious. "You came, General Skywalker," Thrawn greeted, his voice as calm and measured as always. "Isn't this quite the fascinating world? Just by examining the architecture and the relics alone, I'm beginning to form a more complete picture of how the Sith operate, their priorities, their values. But, regrettably, we have more pressing matters to attend to than a guided tour." Thrawn's crimson eyes flicked to Anakin, sharp and analytical. Anakin inclined his head slightly. "Indeed. Though I have to ask, who's your companion?" Thrawn extended a graceful hand toward the pale woman. "This is Kalo Janus, arsonist, anarchist, and one of my more effective associates, you could say." Anakin's brow arched ever so slightly as his mind processed that introduction. An arsonist and an anarchist? He supposed, on reflection, it wasn't all that surprising. Imperial intelligence had always favored the unconventional, recruiting those willing to thrive in chaos rather than order. The more unpredictable, the better, and Kalo certainly had the look of someone who reveled in watching things burn. "Shall we get going?" Anakin asked, his tone neutral, though the edge of curiosity lingered beneath the surface. "Then let's proceed," Thrawn replied smoothly, pivoting on his heel without further delay. Kalo followed with a swaggering confidence, her smirk faint but ever present. Anakin fell into step behind them, his senses keenly aware of the oppressive energy that seemed to seep from every crack in the ancient walls around them. The trio moved deeper into the heart of the Sith Academy, the air thick with the mingling sense of age, blood, and dark ambition. They entered the office, immediately spotting two bodyguards standing stiffly at opposite corners of the room. At the center, a young human woman lounged, her pale, almost ghostly skin stark against the dim lighting. Faint scars traced near her cheeks, adding an unsettling touch to her otherwise youthful appearance. Her jet-black hair was pulled back into a tight ponytail, making her unnaturally bright blue eyes seem even more piercing. The moment she saw the group, her face lit up with an almost childlike glee, though the cruel undertone in her expression made it clear this was no innocent excitement. She spoke, her voice dripping with immaturity laced with unmistakable sadism. "Look who made it all the way to Korriban. I think we have visitors." One of the guards responded with mechanical obedience. "Yes, my lord." Zhorid's grin widened as she sauntered forward. "Commander, I want to be informal with my bodyguards." The commander hesitated for half a beat before replying. "Ah yes, Lady Zhorid." Zhorid's delight was practically tangible. "You my pretty alien," she said, her gaze sliding hungrily to Anakin. She took a long, deliberate look at him, eyes dancing with dark amusement. "Would you please take off your mask for just 1 second?" Anakin saw no immediate harm in it, so he removed his mask, revealing his sharp, unmistakable features. Zhorid's expression turned predatory. "Ah, so you're that handsome dark Jedi I saw a month ago. Now a Sith, I hear, and quite the powerful one, I reckon. Daddy must have told you about the marriage proposal." Anakin slid his mask back on with a touch more speed than before, his mind racing. What proposal? Has this woman completely lost her mind? If she told Jadis she wanted this, why didn't he mention it during the meeting? Maybe he considered it beneath notice, just more of his daughter's delusional nonsense. Either way, the answer would have been a firm no. She's clearly unhinged. He shook his head slightly, brushing the absurd thought aside. Zhorid giggled, and the sound was utterly deranged, like glass shattering under velvet. "Anyways, don't you find my bodyguards delightful?" Thrawn, ever the tactician, decided to humor her. "Absolutely delightful, my lord." Zhorid's smile stretched unnaturally wide. "Excellent. Delightful bodyguard, I have a request." The commander straightened. "Yes, my lady." Zhorid's tone was almost sing-song, syrupy sweet with malice. "Kill our visitors, please." The commander didn't hesitate. "As you wish. They're as good as dead." The first bodyguard lunged at Thrawn, blade flashing. Thrawn sidestepped smoothly, snatching the blade from the attacker's grip with a precision that seemed effortless. With a swift twist, he broke the guard's wrist, forcing him to the ground. A heartbeat later, the guard's neck snapped with a sharp crack. Anakin stood still, watching silently as Thrawn gave him a subtle nod, a clear signal not to interfere. The second guard charged, blade raised high. Thrawn barely glanced at him before expertly hurling the first guard's stolen blade across the room. It struck the second guard's skull dead center, embedding deep between his eyes. The guard crumpled instantly, lifeless before he hit the ground. Thrawn straightened, dusting off his trench coat with casual elegance, as though dispatching 2 trained killers was nothing more than a mild inconvenience. Zhorid clapped her hands together with unsettling glee. "Oh, wonderful! My poor bodyguards!" Kahlo, unable to hold her tongue any longer, muttered aloud. "I'm starting to get a little peeved, and a lot creeped out." Zhorid's giddiness ebbed, her tone shifting to something closer to seriousness, though the instability still simmered beneath the surface. "We haven't been properly introduced. I'm Darth Zhorid, Lord of the Dark Council and successor to my father, Darth Jadis." Her smile sharpened. "I hear you're investigating my father's assassination. I wanted to see if you were worthy." Anakin opted for silence, leaving this one to Thrawn. The Chiss tactician stepped forward, his voice calm and utterly devoid of reaction. "The attack was a test, then?" Zhorid nodded, her bright eyes narrowing in mock scrutiny. "I could sense your feelings during the fight. I think you'll do nicely tracking these terrorists." Then her smile twisted into something more curious. But are you really sure this eagle killed the mighty Darth Jadis? Anakin and Thrawn exchanged a subtle glance, silent communication passing between them. Thrawn's tone remained neutral. Why do you ask? Because I thought you might know more than your superiors, Zhorid said, her voice momentarily losing its playfulness. There was something almost mournful beneath the surface. Jadis. She sounded sad, a rare crack in her twisted demeanor. Jadis believed in spreading fear and anger to every planet and species in the Empire. Even creatures like you. Her gaze lingered on Anakin just a second too long. Perhaps his ambitions drew too much attention. Any one of his rivals on the Dark Council might have killed him, she added, her voice lilting back into that eerie, sing-song tone. Thrawn's red eyes narrowed slightly. You think a Sith was behind the attack? Zhorid gave a lazy shrug, her grin sharp as a knife. Perhaps. Perhaps not. Chase after your terrorists. Save the lives of your precious Imperial friends. But, if you happen to learn who's really responsible, come to me. I've earned my place on the Dark Council, and I have no intention of sharing my father's fate. Her voice took on that unsettling, childish lilt again as she twirled in place. Dismissed. As the group turned to leave, Anakin leaned closer to Thrawn, muttering under his breath. Hey, when you actually need me, call me. You made me sit through that entire meeting with her. He jabbed a finger in Thrawn's direction, only to realize the chiss was already gone. Anakin froze. You've got to be kidding me. He was alone. With her. Zhorid practically popped up in front of his face, uncomfortably close. That's so mean. She pouted. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about you. I still need my answer, since it seems Daddy forgot to tell you. Anakin turned to look around the room, praying for Thrawn to reappear. No such luck. He actually ditched me with this psycho. Anakin took a step back and exhaled through his mask. Listen, crazy lady, the answer is no. Zhorid's mood didn't falter for a second. In fact, her grin only grew. Okay. I guess I can't leave your side now. I'll just have to make you like me, then. Her obsession practically radiated off her in waves, her eyes wide with manic excitement. Anakin could only sigh, his frustration building. What kind of situation did you dump me into, Thrawn? This better be part of your plan, if not, I swear I'll find you. He shook his head, trying to keep some semblance of composure. First of all, you can't come with me. I'm doing tasks for my master. Second, why the hell would you even want to? Just, leave me alone. Zhorid's eyes sparkled with unsettling delight. Firstly, I can come with you, and you have no choice in the matter. I'm a Dark Council member, so there's no refusing me. And secondly, her voice dropped to a disturbingly intimate whisper. I need to make you like me. I need adventure. Her eyes softened, or at least tried to. And the real reason? I like you. Her voice dropped even lower. You seemed nicer than the other Sith. But more than that. I felt something special about you. The first time was at the Academy Library. I used to study there, and I saw you visiting regularly. Anakin's stomach twisted. So, I told Daddy about you. He explained you were a Jedi fighting some war out in the unknown regions. A general. Then you turned to the dark side and killed all your fellow Jedi. Apparently, you have the highest force potential in the entire galaxy. Zhorid's smile was equal parts admiration and obsession, like a child seeing their favorite toy come to life. I was intrigued. And Daddy was interested too. Jadis never paid much attention to the acolytes, but he made an exception for you. Her eyes gleamed. I had to find you. So I specifically called for that blue alien agent to come here. I heard he's the best. And, lucky me, I found out he was the same one who recruited you into the Sith Order. With a bit of luck, I figured he'd call you to help him and now you know the rest." Anakin didn't know whether to be creeped out or impressed that she had orchestrated this entire encounter from the shadows. His voice came out flat. "So, the whole marriage thing was a lie?" Zhorid tilted her head. "Yes and no. I never told Jadis about it. But I meant it." Her smile sharpened. "I knew it would get your attention." Anakin exhaled and turned on his heel, heading for the hangar. Zhorid followed, skipping after him like a schoolgirl. His frustration boiled beneath the surface. Every step she took closer to his personal space made him want to throttle her, but if he killed Darth Jadis' daughter, a sitting Dark Council member, he would be executed without hesitation. "Why, Jadis? Why the hell did you have to fake your death?" As they neared the hangar, Anakin spun to face her. "Look, you're a Dark Council member. Don't you have anything better to do than stalk me?" Zhorid's expression didn't change. "Nope. I have people to handle all that boring work. Plus, apparently, I'm still too inexperienced to attend most council meetings anyway." Anakin gritted his teeth behind his mask as they entered his ship. The moment the ramp closed, Anakin turned, his voice cold and commanding. "Make yourself at home. Rule number 1: I'm in charge. When you follow me, I don't care who you are or what title you have. Is that understood?" Zhorid was too busy playing with her bangs to seem fazed. "Oh sure. I don't mind, as long as we have fun adventures." Before she could skip off, Anakin slammed her against the wall, one hand braced beside her head, his masked face inches from hers. His Sith eyes blazed, glowing with raw intensity. "Listen carefully." His voice was low, cold enough to freeze air. "While you're with me, you will not harm or kill anyone on my crew without my permission. If you break that rule, I will kill you myself. Is that understood?" For a brief moment, actual fear flickered in her eyes before it melted into that same deranged smile. "I'll follow the rules." She leaned in just a bit closer, her breath warm against his mask. "I promise." Anakin released her, backing off, deeply unsettled. "Make yourself at home." His voice was flat. She skipped down the corridor, humming some haunting little tune as she disappeared into her quarters. Anakin groaned, dragging a gloved hand down his faceplate. "Damn you, Thrawn!" He had the sinking feeling Thrawn had planned this all along. But judging Zhorid, it was clear to Anakin that she was utterly unstable, her mind a fragile, chaotic mess barely held together by her title. Yet, for all her instability, he seriously doubted Darth Jadis would have ever won any Father of the Year awards. Still, there was no denying it, he could sense the power within her. It was raw, unfocused, and wildly erratic, but it was there. However, as Anakin sized her up, it became painfully obvious that she wasn't particularly powerful, nor was she particularly skilled. If anything, her power was like a blade left to rust, dangerous, but dulled from neglect. He could only assume that Jadis barely bothered to train her at all. There was potential within her, sure, but nothing refined, nothing dangerous to someone like him. In fact, by his estimate, even Nox could likely defeat her right now, and Nox, for all her brilliance, wasn't exactly a frontline duelist. How Zhorid managed to claw her way to the rank of Darth or even Lord, for that matter, was a mystery Anakin doubted anyone could fully unravel. The most logical explanation was that the Dark Council had no better options. After Jadis' supposed death, there was no one else with the deep knowledge of Imperial intelligence's inner workings to replace him, so they were forced to elevate his daughter, a shaky, desperate compromise at best. Or perhaps it was something far more insidious. Perhaps certain council members saw Zhorid as a puppet, a perfect tool they could manipulate and control. After all, Jadis had more than his fair share of enemies on the council, and though none had dared to challenge him openly, they may have seized the opportunity to exploit his weak and unstable heir. As Anakin pieced it together, only one name stood out as someone with the strength and sheer force of will to face Jadis head-on if it ever came to that: Darth Mar. Mara alone had both the raw power and unshakable resolve to stand against Jadis without fear. The rest of the council? They would have schemed in the shadows, sharpening daggers they would never dare to draw. It was all starting to click. Thrawn's motives, his reasons for luring Anakin to Korriban to meet Zhorid, they were becoming clearer. Thrawn must have anticipated that Zhorid would slow his investigation, bogging him down in her madness and obsession. But there was no way Thrawn could have predicted just how deep her fixation would run. Though ever the opportunist, Thrawn had certainly taken full advantage once he saw it. Anakin realized Thrawn was using him, a living distraction, to keep Zhorid occupied and out of Thrawn's way. And there was more to it. Anakin suspected Thrawn wanted him to find out whether Zhorid was secretly working with her father, if Jadis had faked his death, or if Zhorid herself was in the dark like everyone else. There were too many layers, too many games being played all at once. With a sigh, Anakin made his way toward the ship's engine room, where Vet was tinkering away as usual. Whatever came next, he had no doubt he could handle Zhorid. The real challenge would be peeling back the layers of her psyche, digging deep into her obsessions, her fears, all the cracks that made her who she was. Only by understanding her could he fully break her. As he stepped into the engine room, Vet noticed him immediately. Her leku twitched slightly as she turned to face him. "So, I saw that crazy girl stalking you through the ship," Vet said with a smirk, though there was a nervous edge to it. "I don't even want to know what that's about. But for the record, I'll be sleeping with one eye open." Anakin frowned beneath his mask, though there was a flicker of amusement. "You don't need to worry. If she tries anything, I'll handle her permanently, if I have to. Even if it means becoming a fugitive in the Empire, I won't let her lay a finger on my crew." Vet's smile softened a bit. "That's good to hear. I put my faith in you, you know." She shifted the conversation with the subtle grace she always had. "You know, I was a slave when I was little before I got free." Sort of a full circle moment, hey? Anakin was genuinely surprised. He hadn't expected that. Vet always carried herself with a confidence and humor that felt rare among those who'd been through the grinder. In fact, she was probably the most grounded and emotionally stable member of the entire crew, which was saying something. Considering the brutal fate most female Twi'leks endured, especially those born into slavery, the fact that Vet not only survived but kept her mind intact was nothing short of extraordinary. Anakin tilted his head slightly. "Many of your people are born into slavery," he said, his voice softer. "Is that what happened to you?" Vet's expression turned distant, the humor slipping away for a moment. "Yeah, more or less. My mother, my sister, and we were grabbed when I was just a kid. I barely remember it. We ended up working the mines on Relon until they split us up. I got sold off first to a Rodian, then a Hutt, then some kind of weird three-eyed thing." Anakin could only imagine how different his own life would have been if he'd been separated from his mother that young. As a slave himself, he knew all too well the horrors that came with chains, but at least he'd had her, even for a little while. That alone made him luckier than most. Rodians. Anakin's mind briefly drifted back to Tatooine, to Greedo and his gang, always trying to pick fights with him and his friends. He could still remember the day Greedo pushed him too far and ended up on the wrong side of a beating. Anakin smirked at the memory. Maybe Vet's Rodian master found out the hard way that Vet wasn't the type to submit quietly either. "Let me guess," Anakin said, the corner of his mouth tugging into a slight grin. "Your master probably found you more trouble than you were worth." Vet laughed, the tension in the room easing. "Ha! Yeah, let's just say I was never exactly in the running for Slave of the Year. Funny how life works. I've been dragged all over the galaxy, but now a Sith ship actually feels like home." Anakin chuckled, a rare, genuine sound. "This is home. Our weird little community." Vet grinned. "I guess you're right. Just, watch out, or I might start calling you Pops." Anakin snorted, shaking his head. "Let's not get carried away." As their conversation continued, the weight of their pasts and the madness of the present felt a little lighter, at least for the moment. 1 week later. The past week had been eventful, to say the least. Anakin had deliberately taken the time to familiarize himself with the crew, to observe, to learn their quirks, strengths, and weaknesses. Vet had made a point to stay as far away from Zhorid as possible, the Twi'lek's instincts screaming at her to avoid the unhinged Darth in name only at all costs. Zhorid, for her part, had done the exact opposite. The Sith woman never left Anakin's side, her presence clinging to him like a shadow. Her obsession with him was suffocating, her gaze always lingering just a moment too long. But in time, whether out of necessity or sheer force of will, Anakin grew to tolerate her presence, if only barely. Kalani had been busy during this downtime. The droid's cold precision had uncovered a tracking device hidden deep within one of the ship's ventilation shafts. After thorough investigation, the truth became clear: it was a Republic tracking beacon, likely planted by a covert agent before Darth Barris had gifted Anakin the ship. The discovery was troubling, but Anakin made the calculated decision to leave it intact. If they removed or disabled it now, they would only tip off the Republic that they had been exposed. Better to let them believe they were still in the dark and have Kalani quietly track the signal back to its source when the time was right. But for now, duty called. Anakin strode purposefully to the central hologram projector, activating it to receive his next orders from Barris. As the shimmering blue form of Darth Barris materialized, the display filled with the image of Bomara, the war-torn world where a massive Imperial fleet now loomed in orbit, poised to crush the rebellious planet beneath its heel. Barris' deep voice echoed through the chamber. "Ah, you've arrived on Bomara. Excellent. Your contact there is Lieutenant Malave Quinn. I trust you'll find him most helpful." Anakin's masked gaze flickered slightly. "Where can I find this man?" Barris' response was curt, as always. "Quinn will meet you in his offices at Sobrik headquarters. We will speak again once he has briefed you." The hologram flickered, the image dissolving into static, but before Anakin could turn away, the projector began to beep again. An incoming transmission. Anakin's brow furrowed beneath his mask. Curious, he keyed the command to accept the signal. The air around him darkened, and the hollow projector sprang back to life, but this time, the figure that appeared was a towering monolith clad in heavy, dark crimson battle armor. His face was fully obscured behind a menacing, skull-like mask, the aura of authority radiating off him like heat from a dying star. Darth Mar. The sight of him stirred something in Anakin's chest, not fear, not contempt, but something far rarer when it came to Sith, respect. In his mind, Mar was one of the very few Sith Lords Anakin could actually hold in any regard. Unlike so many others on the Dark Council, Mar wasn't obsessed with personal power, petty infighting, or empty displays of dominance. Mar genuinely cared about the Empire itself, its citizens, its soldiers, its survival. He would sacrifice his own life to preserve the Empire before he let it crumble under the weight of the Council's greed and infighting. He also lacked the casual xenophobia that plagued so many of his peers. Mar saw non-humans as equals, as long as they were loyal and served with distinction. In an empire drowning in human supremacist arrogance, Mar's pragmatic fairness stood out like a beacon. Unofficially, Mar could be considered the true leader of the Empire, even if no one would ever admit it aloud. With the Emperor buried in his endless isolation, and the Dark Council too fractured to rule effectively, it was Mar who held the Empire together through sheer will and unmatched military acumen. Whether they liked it or not, the other councillors often deferred to him when real decisions needed to be made. Anakin's mind flickered back to what he had read in the Sith archives: Mar's origins, his rise. A human male, born in 3702 BBY, Mar had claimed a seat on the Dark Council while still in his early 20s, an astonishing feat by any measure. Since then, he had been a relentless defender of the Empire, a warlord whose name was feared across the galaxy. Entire Republic offensives had shattered against the iron wall of Mar's forces. He even remembered Mar's apprentice Darth Lacris, if memory served, though by all accounts, she was more of a governor than a true battlefield commander. Mare's voice was a low rumble, like distant thunder. I have a matter to discuss with you. Anakin immediately bowed. My lord, what do you require of me? Mare's tone was firm, but not unkind. You may rise, Vader. Anakin straightened, his mask glinting in the dim light. I have heard of your exploits, Mar continued. The Talon mission, your history as a seasoned general during the war in the unknown region, you are no ordinary Sith apprentice. I have decided to put you in direct command of the 501st Imperial Legion. The words caught Anakin's attention. The 501st, the number struck a deep chord, echoing memories of his clone troopers, his brothers in arms. Even now, all these years, the years in his past, the attachment still clung to him like a phantom limb. There is a massive resistance movement on Bomara, Mar went on. My apprentice, Governor Lacris, has proven insufficient. She is not a commander, she is a bureaucrat, and her inability to grasp the necessities of war has allowed the rebels to drive her forces to the brink of collapse. They strike at our supply convoys, sabotage key infrastructure, and employ guerrilla tactics to devastating effect. This war has become a drain on Imperial resources, and I will not allow it to continue. Mare's masked visage loomed closer in the hologram. The 501st Legion has already been deployed. They are holding position near the Bomara Arms Factory, a fortress under constant siege, with thousands of rebel fighters entrenched around it. The Legion awaits your arrival and your command. Anakin took a moment to absorb the information. An inexperienced and incompetent governor at the helm, no wonder the Empire was bleeding ground. But they were fortunate Vader was here now. And when Vader took command, the tide would turn. Anakin's voice was cold, confident. Consider this resistance crushed, my lord. They do not stand a chance. Mare's expression, hidden beneath his skull-like mask, remained unreadable. Complete this, and when you earn your lordship under Barriss, you will also earn my respect and perhaps something more. Anakin's eyes narrowed behind his mask, but he said nothing. Meet with Captain Regal, Mar continued. He will brief you further upon your arrival at the spaceport. Do not disappoint me, Vader. The hologram flickered, then vanished, leaving Anakin alone in the chamber once more. The silence lingered heavy, but not unwelcome. Anakin exhaled, shoulders squaring. A war waited for him below, and the 501st stood ready to follow him into the fire. Bomara would learn what it meant to stand against Vader. Before Anakin could take a step away from the hollow table, Zhorid lunged at him, trying to jump onto his back like some deranged Nexo cub. Without even looking, Anakin sidestepped effortlessly. Zhorid flew past him, nearly slamming into the hollow table, only to twist her body at the last moment and land, albeit awkwardly, on the floor. How long will you resist your true feelings for me? She purred, her obsession dripping from every word. Her mismatched eyes gleamed with something far too close to desire, something twisted and unhealthy, even by Sith standards. Anakin, already tired of this routine, exhaled sharply. And I will answer you every time, no. His hand reached into his cloak and pulled out a mask, sleek, expressionless, and perfectly concealing. Now put this on. To his surprise and mild horror, Zhorid snatched the mask with both hands, holding it like a treasured relic. A gift. I knew it. Proof of your love. Without hesitation, she slipped it over her face. The mask's built-in modulator immediately altered her voice, giving it a metallic undertone. The unsettling cheerfulness, however, remained intact. Anakin cut off her fantasy before it could spiral further. No, it's not a gift. I can't have anyone recognizing you, a Dark Council member, no less trailing after me like a love-struck cath pup. It would draw far too much attention. Especially considering you're the daughter of Darth Jadis. While we're in public, you're Sylvia. If you don't like it, stop following me and go stalk someone else. Zhorid giggled behind the mask. No, no. I'll take the fake name. Sylvia, how romantic. I knew you cared. You'd be so sad without me. She twirled in place like a deranged dancer. Oh! Can I give you a nickname too? Anakin's jaw clenched beneath his mask. The very idea made him physically recoil. There was no way he was letting this lunatic give him some cutesy nickname, and Sith only knew what she'd come up with. He cut her off immediately. No. Absolutely not. Zhorid pouted, or at least, she probably did under the mask, but followed silently as they approached the ramp where Vet waited, arms crossed and already looking like she regretted her life choices. Together, the trio stepped down onto the cracked durasteel landing pad, heading for the spaceport's outer gate. Just outside the port's exit, a weathered Imperial officer stood waiting, his uniform impeccably pressed despite the grime and smoke-stained air around him. He straightened as Anakin approached, saluting sharply. "My lord. Welcome to Bomara. Hope you like bombed to pieces mud holes." The officer's voice carried a thin veneer of dry humor beneath the formality. "Captain Rigel, Imperial Conquest Consolidation Corps. When the Empire invades, we're the ones who seal the deal." He clasped his hands behind his back. "As of now, you're the highest-ranking officer on Bomara by order of Darth Mar. I'm here to brief you." Anakin stood silent, absorbing his words. The shattered skyline of Bomara loomed behind the captain, smoke trailing into the sky, distant explosions rumbling like thunder. "The Empire invaded during the last war," Rigel continued, "but we've been spinning our wheels in the mud ever since. Resistance fighters seem to think they can actually drive us off their planet. We're here to prove them wrong." Anakin's mask tilted slightly. "If they're still fighting, how have you not crushed them yet?" Rigel's jaw tightened slightly at the implied rebuke. "We're the army, my lord. Other soldiers, they don't handle our kind of specialized operations. But the real problem is the Bomaran government in exile." He spat the words like they left a bad taste in his mouth. "They're backed by the Republic's Minister of Defense Val Arjun, and his influence is propping up a major faction of the resistance. Arjun himself is off-world, hiding somewhere safe, but if we dismantle his network here, we break him." Anakin's tone was cold. "Why hasn't Imperial intelligence just assassinated him?" Rigel gave a thin smile, half respect, half frustration. "I see you're thinking, my lord, cut off the head, the body dies. Problem is, resistance movements aren't exactly organisms. Take out Arjun, and some other idealist would just step in. It'd be a blow, but not fatal. That's why we have to break everything: the leaders, the infrastructure, the morale. When we're done, there'll be no one left to replace him." He straightened. "Just give the word, my lord, and we'll begin." Anakin's reply was emotionless, a cold promise. "I will hunt the Empire's enemies. And I will break them." Rigel saluted again. "We are honored to have you, my lord." Anakin's gaze flicked briefly to Zhorid or Sylvia, as she stood off to the side. The disguise suited her in a disturbing way. No sound, no unnatural giggles, just silence. Watching. Observing like a specter. For a moment, Anakin wondered if that's why Jadis always wore a mask. Was this silence a family trait? Or was it just the madness peeking through? Even Vet seemed unsettled, side-eyeing Zhorid every chance she got. Rigel cleared his throat, bringing Anakin's attention back. "My second-in-command, Lieutenant Davril, is overseeing the first stage of what we call Operation Breaking Point. You'll find him at Sobrik. He's been waiting for you to give the green light." The captain smirked faintly. "Davril's got some creative ideas for how to blow the resistance sky high. I think you'll approve." Without another word, Anakin stepped past the captain, moving toward Sobrik with his entourage in tow. As they walked, his eyes swept across the landscape. The city itself was encased in a shimmering shield, the only thing keeping it from being obliterated under constant rocket fire from the resistance positions outside. Imperial anti-missile batteries spat volleys into the sky, intercepting incoming projectiles, a never-ending exchange of death between the Empire's defenses and the rebel artillery. The air stank of scorched earth, burning metal, and the coppery tang of blood. Anakin's lip curled beneath his mask. Yes, this planet was a war zone. Anakin decided to meet with Barriss contact, Malave Quinn, first. He entered the command center, immediately spotting an officer scolding a soldier. "Sir, I apologize, sir. It was the best I could do," the soldier stammered, clearly on edge. The officer, a human male, clean-shaven with sharply combed black hair, stepped closer, his voice cold as durasteel. "If that's your best, you're useless to me. I can't even shoot you dead with a clear conscience. Is that what you want?" The soldier's back straightened, panic flickering in his eyes. "No, sir." "Then focus, Gillens." "Dismissed." The officer's tone was clipped, all business, his disgust evident as the soldier saluted sharply and made a swift exit. The officer's attention shifted, his eyes locking onto Anakin and his companions as they approached. Without hesitation, he bowed respectfully and introduced himself. "I apologize for the delay, my lord. Lieutenant Malave Quinn. I'm to be your liaison here on Bomara." Anakin sized him up immediately. Competent, methodical, even. He could sense the man's obsessive need for order and control bleeding off him like a cloud of cold air. This one would be useful. "It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Quinn," Anakin said smoothly. Quinn bowed his head slightly. "And to you, my lord. Lord Barriss will brief you personally, but I'm to acquaint you with the climate here on Bomara first." Anakin gestured for him to continue. "By all means, go ahead." Quinn's expression tightened into the professional mask of someone reciting facts they'd memorized 100 times over. "Even though the Empire wrestled control of Bomara from the Republic during the war, we were never able to fully eradicate their presence. There remains a rather sizable resistance movement, and while no one wants to publicly admit it, it's clear the Republic is backing them." Anakin didn't even flinch at the news. At this point, Republic interference was as predictable as gravity. Whether covertly or through outright proxy battles, the Republic and the Empire always found ways to entangle themselves. "The Republic cannot be tolerated," Anakin said, his voice flat but brimming with lethal intent. Quinn's eyes gleamed with subtle satisfaction. "I agree completely, my lord. It is my personal dream to see our enemy utterly vanquished." Turning back to his console, Quinn's fingers glided across the terminal, bringing up a secure transmission line. "I have a secure connection to Lord Barriss. I'll patch him through immediately." The hollow projector flickered to life, and Barriss' imposing figure took shape in pale blue light. His voice oozed with calculated authority. "Ah, I see you've convened with my apprentice. Very good, Lieutenant. Leave us." Without hesitation, Quinn offered a sharp salute and exited the room, leaving Anakin, Vet, and the masked figure of Zhorid behind. Zhorid was unnervingly silent. No shrill laughter, no melodramatic proclamations, no fawning attention toward Anakin. She was simply watching. Observing. Silent as a tomb. That's not right, Anakin thought. Normally, she was a whirlwind of obsessive adoration and twisted neediness, an unstable Sith girl dangling just above full psychotic collapse. But now? Now she felt eerily controlled, her whole demeanor flipped 180 degrees. The way she stood there, still as a shadow, just watching and listening, reminded him uncomfortably of her father Darth Jadis. This is getting stranger by the minute, he thought, but he shook the feeling off. There were more immediate matters to handle. Barriss' voice cut through his thoughts like a vibroblade. "Quinn owes his career to me, but we must keep the details of your mission between the two of us. Time is against us, apprentice. We must act swiftly." His tone sharpened. "Nomen Kars Padawan has drawn Jedi attention to my undercover spy here on Bomara. Do you recall this?" Anakin nodded once. "Of course. I remember everything." "Good," Barriss purred approvingly. "I'll get to the point. My spy is Commander Relon of the Republic Resistance. He serves as the primary contact for all of my operatives across the sector. Unfortunately, Quinn has been tracking a Republic investigator the Jedi dispatched, meaning we need to cover our tracks before you eliminate Relon. Barris' holographic form loomed slightly closer. Your first objective is to destroy all evidence linking Relon to the sabotage of Bombara's planetary defense network during the war. To do this, you'll need to breach the satellite control tower. Barris' voice lowered slightly, as if savoring the challenge ahead. Quinn's intelligence indicates the tower is a death trap, layers of mechanical security and automated defenses. Expect heavy resistance. Anakin barely registered the warning. Are there any special requirements? His voice was casual, confident the idea of danger was less a threat and more an invitation. Quinn has prepared everything you'll need, Barris confirmed. I'll summon him back now. Remember, he is not to know the real reason behind your mission. Barris' image faded, leaving Anakin in silence. Moments later, the door hissed open and Quinn re-entered, his posture straight and formal. My lord, Quinn began, I've prepared the equipment for your assault on the satellite control tower. He stepped forward, presenting a compact device in both hands. In order to destroy the mainframe, you'll need to mount this charge at the tower's base and activate it. Once it's set, contact me, and I'll handle the remote detonation. Quinn gave a sharp bow. I'll remain on standby awaiting your signal, my lord. Without another word, he turned on his heel and strode out. Anakin pocketed the device and left the command center, heading for another facility nearby. There was one more piece of business to handle before launching the operation, this so-called Breaking Point initiative. If it was another pointless bureaucratic exercise, Anakin fully intended to divert those Imperial resources to the far more crucial Bomara factory assault. Efficiency was everything. He entered the room, immediately spotting a lieutenant leaning against the hollow table, fatigue and tension lining his face. As Anakin approached, the officer stiffened, stood upright, and hastily bowed in respect, recognizing the Sith Lord at once. My lord, word of your talent precedes you. I'm honored. The lieutenant's voice carried the appropriate mix of respect and ambition, but there was a hungry edge beneath the flattery. You're well aware of the situation, I'm sure. The government in exile, the resistance cowards. On your command, we will bury them in their little hide holes. Anakin saw no issue with that. War without bloodshed was like a lightsaber without a blade, pointless. What's war without a little bloodshed? Anakin remarked with a casual shrug. The lieutenant's grin was sharp, predatory. I like how you think, my lord. He leaned forward slightly, eager to continue. The old government's been sneaking generators to the resistance, they're powering the artillery that's been hammering our positions. Worse, the resistance cut deals with Bombara's most vicious murderers, offering them pardons in exchange for guard duty. His eyes gleamed. Phase 1 of Operation Breaking Point is simple: destroy those generators and put those killers down permanently. You in? Anakin's mask barely concealed the faint smirk on his lips. Let's do this. With their artillery silenced, the assault on the arms factory will go a lot smoother. Very well, my lord, the lieutenant said, practically vibrating with enthusiasm. Let's get down to business, shall we? The generators are stashed in the Nibre warehouse. Blow them to H, and you'll show the Bomara resistance that it takes more than cold-blooded killers and scavenged artillery to stop the Empire. Anakin nodded once. He knew his task. With Vet at his side and the eerily quiet Zhorid trailing behind, he mounted a speeder and rode out toward the Mark Aaron Imperial outpost. The journey across the war-torn planet painted a vivid picture of Bomara's suffering. Its rocky terrain was interrupted by patches of windswept grasslands, the ground turned to thick mud where battles had scarred the earth. Smoke curled from distant fires, the constant thrum of artillery and the crackle of blaster fire never far from earshot. As they neared the outpost, Anakin took in the defensive walls, sturdy, pock-marked with blaster burns, standing resolute against the Resistance's relentless attacks. The gates opened just long enough to allow squads of Imperial troops to roll out in armored vehicles, heading to yet another frontline skirmish. Anakin wasted no time. They moved toward the satellite control tower, cutting down Resistance fighters and security droids that dared to stand in their way. The hiss of his crimson blade cleaving through durasteel echoed through the corridors, a mechanical scream cut short as one droid split clean in half. With a flick of his wrist, he crushed another droid into a twisted ball of metal, hurling it with the force into a larger security droid advancing on the group. Zhorid's laughter rang out high, wild, and unhinged as she seized several droids with the force, slamming them into walls and each other with gleeful brutality. Her crimson lightsaber danced through the air, carving them apart in sweeping arcs. Vet, wisely, stayed as far out of the way as possible, dodging sparks and flying debris as Zhorid unleashed her storm. Anakin's eyes flicked towards Zhorid, quietly noting her movements. Her technique, at first glance, it was erratic, reckless. But the more he watched, the more he saw through the facade. Her precision was too deliberate. The flow between her force throws and saber strikes was too seamless. This wasn't random chaos, it was controlled. Calculated, even. Is she hiding her true abilities? Anakin wondered, narrowing his eyes beneath his mask. Is the obsessive, lovesick, unhinged Sith act just a mask? It didn't add up. From the moment they'd arrived on Bomara, she'd been strangely quiet, no outbursts, no declarations of devotion, no invasive attempts to cling to him. Just silence. Watching. Studying. It was unsettling. The way her stillness echoed Jada's own presence, detached, observant, always 5 steps ahead. Anakin decided to keep his suspicions to himself. For now. With the last droid reduced to scrap, the room fell silent save for the faint hum of their lightsabers. Anakin deactivated his weapon and strode to the central console, planting the explosive charge. When detonated, it would wipe all traces of Barriss' spy network, no evidence, no loose ends. He activated his holo communicator. Quinn's image flickered to life, ever formal. "My lord, I'm tracking your progress. I see the charge is armed. I'll detonate it once you've reached a safe distance. But first, Darth Barriss wishes to speak with you. I'll leave the line secure for the two of you." Quinn's hologram dissolved, replaced by the hulking projection of Barriss, his shadowed face cold and unreadable. "Apprentice, there's one more potential threat to our operation, one that must be silenced before you confront Commander Relon." Barriss leaned forward slightly, his voice lowering. "It involves infiltrating a Republic keep and eliminating a lowly ensign named Dermat, Relon's son. The fool confided his true identity to the boy, and we cannot allow that weakness to exist." Anakin exhaled, shaking his head. Relon was a fool to tell his son anything. "The one chink in his otherwise flawless armor," Barriss said, his voice thick with contempt. "I'll have Quinn transmit the details. Be swift, my apprentice." Barriss' image faded, and Quinn's hologram returned almost instantly. "My lord, Ensign Dermat is currently held in the brig at the Republic Crater Outpost. He's awaiting interrogation by the Republic agent I've been tracking, the same one Darth Barriss warned you about. I'll alert you if the investigator moves toward his location, but I assume you'll want to reach him first." "You assume correctly, Lieutenant," Anakin replied, his tone as cold and sharp as his blade. "Then I won't delay you any further. Good luck, my lord. I'll be here should you require anything." With that, the call ended, and Anakin turned toward the door. Vet followed close behind, while Zhorid stood by the ruined console a moment longer, her head tilting slightly, her mask unreadable. As they stepped outside, Anakin pulled his hood up over his head. Behind them, the satellite tower erupted in a fiery blast, metal and debris collapsing in on itself. The explosion lit the night sky, casting flickering shadows across the mud and rock, a fitting prelude to the carnage yet to come. Anakin and the group were halfway back to the Imperial outpost when he finally broke the silence. His voice was cold, stripped of any emotion. You've been awfully quiet, Zhorid. Is there a reason why? Zhorid walked a step behind, her blank mask giving nothing away. Her reply, however, was as gratingly familiar as ever, high-pitched, playful, and laced with obsession. Oh? You miss me already? Are you finally going to confess your feelings? She giggled, the sound sharp and unnatural. Besides, I thought you preferred me quiet in public. Isn't that what you like? The tone was her usual immature, lovesick act, but to Anakin, it rang hollow. There was a subtle shift in how she avoided the question, wrapping herself in her usual persona rather than offering any real explanation. On the surface, what she said made sense. But nothing about Zhorid's mind was normal. There was always something festering beneath the surface. His suspicions hardened, but he said nothing. There was no point prodding further. Not yet. They reached the outpost, where Anakin secured a new speeder. With Vet and Zhorid in tow, he rode out to the southern Bomara Operations military workshop, the next target in Operation Breaking Point. The main road led straight into a warehouse district where the Resistance had stashed their generators and their so-called guardians. As Anakin stepped forward, a heavily scarred man leaned lazily against the entrance. One of the pardoned killers. Hey, you lost! The man called out, voice thick with mockery. His eyes roamed over the group, first Anakin, then Vet, then Zhorid. His lips curled into a greasy, evil grin. Yeah, I can tell just by looking at you ain't local. His smile widened, showing yellowed teeth. Me and my boys, we've been cooped up too long, you know? We could use a little entertainment. His eyes flicked back to Vet and Zhorid. So how about you just hand over those pretty friends of yours? We'll show em a good time before we send em back to you in pieces. Vet stiffened, disgust clear on her face, but before she could react, Anakin raised a gloved hand, signaling her and Zhorid to stay back. I'll handle this alone, Anakin said, voice low and deathly calm. Just sit tight and wait. He stepped forward, lowering his hood, then slowly reached up and removed his Ravan mask, tucking it into the folds of his cloak. The face beneath was twisted, his features shifting into a cruel, feral grin. His eyes gleamed with something unhinged, something that promised pain and suffering, drawn out and savored. You know, Anakin purred, voice low and silken with malice, I've been looking for some fun too. And I think I've just found my entertainment. His smile widened into something animalistic, all sharp teeth and promise of agony. The guard took a cautious step back, bravado crumbling into fear. Hey man, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. We made some mistakes, all right? No need to. You have made mistakes, Anakin said, voice dropping to a dark whisper. And now it's time to pay. The snap hiss of his crimson blade silenced all argument. In one fluid motion, he cleaved the man in half, the severed corpse crumpling into the mud. Without a word, Anakin surged forward into the warehouse. The sounds followed the hum and crackle of a lightsaber, the shriek of burning metal, the panicked shouts of resistance fighters who barely had time to scream before being silenced. Blaster fire erupted, cut off just as quickly by the shrill snap of deflected bolts. The scent of scorched flesh filled the air. Vet and Zhorid stood outside, the latter's mask tilting slightly as she listened to the carnage within. Moments later, Anakin emerged, slipping his mask back into place. Behind him, the warehouse detonated, a roaring inferno consuming it from within. The mountain it was built into trembled from the force of the blast, loose rocks and debris cascading down the slopes. In the quiet that followed, Anakin mentally ticked off the checklist. Bomara Resistance's cold-blooded killers dead. Generators powering their artillery destroyed. Phase 1 of Operation Breaking Point complete. Not a word passed his lips as they made the return trip to Sobrik. The command center doors slid open, revealing the waiting lieutenant. Must have been my imagination, the officer said with a grin. But I could have sworn I heard those generators go pop from here. Beautiful work, my lord. His smile faded slightly. Unfortunately, it looks like the resistance isn't done yet. Anakin crossed his arms, voice dry with disdain. You'd think the Empire would have an easier time with a ragtag bunch of rebels. The lieutenant sighed. Used to be we kept the resistance tucked away in the wilds where they belonged. But they've gotten bolder, attacking Imperial holdings in the old Bomara industrial area. His eyes flicked toward a nearby map. We need to punish that boldness. Lieutenant Thorpe at Mark Aaron Outpost has some ideas on how to put these scum back in their place. He'll be waiting for you there. Anakin offered nothing more than a curt nod before turning on his heel, cloak swirling as he strode from the room. Vet followed silently, and Zhorid. Zhorid just stood there a moment longer, head tilting ever so slightly. Watching. Always watching. Anakin sped through the war-torn terrain of Bomara, his speeder cutting through the mud and rocky paths like a blade. The Mark Aaron outpost loomed ahead, its walls scarred by endless resistance raids, smoke still curling into the sky from distant clashes. Without slowing, Anakin guided the speeder past the perimeter, then veered toward a smaller recon bunker perched on a hill overlooking the battlefield. Lieutenant Thorpe stood waiting, hands clasped behind his back, his expression one of smug calculation. The officer bowed the moment Anakin dismounted. My lord, Thorpe said smoothly. Word of your exploits with Lieutenant Davril has reached me. I trust you didn't find him too crass. There was a faint sneer in his voice. Unlike my esteemed colleague, I do not measure success by the volume of an explosion. Anakin's masked gaze bore down on him. So, what are the ingredients for this mission? Thorpe's eyes gleamed. The resistance thrives on the people's support. To break the resistance, we must first break the people's spirits. The rebels believe they have the upper hand thanks to off-world cyborg mercenaries, experimental soldiers equipped with advanced drop technology. These warriors are cutting through our troops with brutal efficiency. Anakin's response was a cold whisper. They have not met me. Thorpe smiled. Delightful. I've identified a location where we can catch these mercenaries off guard, but here's the true brilliance: once you've cut them down, we'll collect the very technology they used to land here and turn it against them. The lieutenant stepped closer, his voice lowering conspiratorially. We'll send the Bomara people a clear message: their saviors are nothing but scrap metal under our boots. Anakin nodded slowly. A devious mind, Lieutenant. Very well. Bring me the cyborg technology and the Bomara people will know exactly who their future belongs to. Without another word, Anakin set off into the surrounding terrain. The wilds were torn apart by trenches, shattered roads, and the skeletal remains of war machines left to rot. The cyborg mercenaries were waiting, their enhanced eyes scanning the horizon, but it didn't matter. They never saw him coming. The hum of his crimson blade cut through the air, followed by the shriek of tearing metal and the gurgled cries of synthetic voices trying to sound human. One by one, the mercenaries fell, their superior hardware no match for the raw fury and precision of the Sith. With their bodies lying broken at his feet, Anakin knelt, prying the advanced implants and drop beacons from their corpses with methodical care. The stolen technology hummed faintly in his hands, still warm from combat. The return to Thorpe was swift. The lieutenant was already waiting, arms folded as Anakin approached, his sharp eyes flicking toward the stolen implants. Word travels quickly, Thorpe said, almost giddy. It seems the former Minister of Defense, Val Arjun, caught wind of your little show at the Nibre warehouse. By all accounts, he's livid. A dark smile tugged at the corner of Anakin's mouth beneath his mask. Perhaps he'll lose his temper entirely and come here to face me himself. Thorpe chuckled. We'll do everything we can to provoke him, my lord. In the meantime, to reach the Resistance's main base, we'll need to cut through the Gorinth wilds. Every attempt to secure the area has failed. Their guerrilla tactics are too well entrenched, and the terrain itself fights against us. Thorpe's expression darkened slightly. Fortunately, a local defector 1 Caval has offered to guide us through. He's stationed at the Gorinth Imperial outpost, ready to assist. Anakin said nothing, but the plan was already forming in his mind. The Gorinth wilds were a key obstacle. Clearing them would mean faster resupply routes, easier troop movements, and most importantly it would choke off the Resistance's last escape routes, leaving them isolated and vulnerable. Without a word, he turned back to his speeder, Vet, and Zhorid falling into step behind him. The path through the wilds would be carved in blood, and Anakin would ensure the rebels understood the true meaning of fear before the end. Before dealing with the Gorinth wilds, Anakin had one last loose end to tie up. The Republic crater base loomed ahead, an absurdly exposed location for a Resistance outpost. Anakin slowed his speeder, surveying the vast, open pit with a silent sneer behind his mask. A base this open? Who approved this stupidity? Any competent Imperial strategist would have flattened it with orbital bombardment. No matter. He would handle it personally. 2 Resistance fighters stood guard at the entrance, blasters slung lazily at their sides. As Anakin approached, one of them stiffened, then scowled in recognition. Halt! You're in a restricted. The man's words faltered as his eyes locked onto the black-cloaked figure approaching with measured steps. Then, realization dawned. You've made a grave mistake coming to Bomara, Sith. The soldier snapped his rifle up and fired. Anakin moved in a blur. His crimson blade ignited, the first blaster bolt deflecting harmlessly into the dirt. Then, with a single fluid stroke, he cut the guard down. The second fighter barely had time to shout before Anakin was upon them, his lightsaber humming as it arced through the air, slicing through flesh and armor alike. The remaining Resistance troops inside the base scrambled for their weapons, barking orders, but it was too late. Vet took cover, expertly firing off precision shots, each bolt finding its mark. Zhorid laughing softly extended her hand, gripping Resistance soldiers with the force and hurling them off the edges of the crater. Their screams echoed as they plummeted into the abyss below. Anakin carved a bloody path forward, his lightsaber spinning, slicing through flesh and armor alike. Resistance fighters fell like wheat before the scythe. The air filled with the sounds of blaster fire, panicked screams, and the distinct hiss of a lightsaber cutting through metal and bone. They reached the prison sector swiftly. Anakin turned a corner and, without hesitation, cut down a Resistance fighter who had been attempting to hide. There is no escaping Vader, he muttered under his breath. The holding cells were mostly empty except for 2 occupants. A woman sat quietly in a cell, staring at the carnage unfolding before her with wide, terrified eyes. Anakin ignored her. His real target was the man behind the force field. Ensign Dermat. A dark-skinned Republic infiltrator stood guard outside the cell, his cybernetic implants glinting under the dim lights. He didn't even glance back as Anakin approached. His attention was on Dermat. Pipe down, Dermat. Something's going on outside. I'm trying to listen, he muttered. Dermat was already sweating, looking around frantically for any way out. His voice cracked with desperation. Come on, Jix, throw me a bone. Who's this agent coming to interrogate me? At least tell me that. Jix remained silent. Dermat's hands trembled. Fine, fine, stay clamped. I don't care who it is. I ain't talking. Nobody's gonna get nothing out of me. Nothin'. His bravado was paper thin. He looked around once more, found no escape, and broke. All right, all right. I ain't proud, I give. My dad, he's an Imperial agent. Jix tensed. He turned slightly. What did you just say? My dad is a what? That was when the lights behind them dimmed. A shadow fell over the corridor. The temperature seemed to drop. And then came the voice. He signed his death warrant. Dermat's face drained of color as he turned. Oh, no. Jix pivoted, hand reaching for his blaster. This is a restricted area. Who are you? Dermat stammered. It's not a who, it's a what? Sith. Anakin lifted his lightsaber slightly, the crimson glow illuminating the metallic sheen of his mask. That's right, he said coldly. I'm Sith. Jix exhaled sharply, regaining his composure. He smirked. Hat. Like I couldn't tell you were bad news the second I saw you? Take a look behind yourself, Sith. 8 Republic commandos stormed into the corridor, rifles raised. That's what 2 squads of the Republic's finest look like. Anakin tilted his head. You're about to see what 2 dead squads of the Republic look like. Before the first soldier could react, Anakin's fingers curled into a fist. The snap of breaking necks echoed down the corridor. All 8 soldiers collapsed, their bodies crumpling to the floor in unison. Jix barely had time to register what had happened before a crimson blade pierced his heart. He choked on his last breath, eyes wide with shock, then collapsed lifelessly to the ground. Dermat staggered back, hands shaking. His breath came in short, shallow gasps. He knelt beside Jix's. Jix? Jix? Come on, talk to me, man. Get up. Please. The only response was silence. Anakin took another step forward, his presence overwhelming. Look at me, Ensign Dermat. Dermat's voice wavered, thick with desperation. But, if I don't look, maybe you're not really here. His breath hitched as he clenched his eyes shut. Oh, blast! I looked. His body trembled as he pressed himself against the wall, staring at the dark figure before him. Please, please, I know why you're here. The Republic, they're investigating my dad, and an agent's coming to put the screws to me. But I won't break, I promise. Let me live, my dad's secret is safe with me. I'm a rock. Anakin scoffed, a cold smirk tugging at his lips. You'd crack the minute someone looked at you funny. I just heard you confess to Jix. Dermat's face twisted in panic. Yeah, but he's dead now, so he can't tell anyone. His voice grew more frantic as he grasped for anything that might save him. My father's done so much for the Empire. Maybe the apple fell off the tree, kind of far from the tree, but it's still, the apple's still, his brow furrowed. Not exactly sure where I was going with that. His shoulders sagged as his courage utterly failed him. Please don't kill me. Anakin studied him for a long moment, weighing his options. Killing him now would be effortless, one swift strike, and the fool would be gone. But the boy, despite his cowardice, wasn't truly an enemy. His father had served the Empire loyally, and if Barriss wanted the man dead, a mercy to the family might be in order. I'm willing to consider alternatives, Anakin said, his voice even and unreadable. Is there another solution? Dermat's eyes widened as hope sparked in his mind. Hold on yet. I just had a thought pop into my head. Quick, before it pops out. He swallowed hard. My assignment here was in the medical lab, moving supplies and making deliveries. The docs there were working on something really cool. It was supposed to be a temporary amnesia drug, but it wiped the mind totally clean. The test subjects didn't even know their own names. Anakin folded his arms. Go on. You could break into the lab and bring back the drug. I'll overdose, and then I won't know anything anymore. That way, my dad's secret identity is safe, and I can't spill anything. Anakin exhaled slowly. You're in luck. You're getting a second chance at life. Dermat let out a shaky breath. I've never had a second chance before. His fingers twitched as he pointed toward the back of the building. The head doc kept a small supply of the drug in his footlocker. His voice faltered as his eyes darted toward Anakin's gloved hand. Wait, is that? Anakin held up the drug, tilting his head slightly. This? Dermat blinked in disbelief. Yeah, that's it. How'd you? Anakin's tone was flat. Does it matter? Good point. Dermat shuffled nervously. Can I have a moment? You know, to reflect on my life before I erase it. Anakin gave a silent nod, watching as Dermat knelt, mumbling to himself. Let's see, there was that time I almost shot myself in the foot. That was a close one. What else? His voice trailed off as he continued his whispered reminiscing. Finally, he stood, straightening his back. I'm ready. Give me the drug. Anakin handed it over, his voice calm but firm. Try not to screw up your new life. Dermat chuckled nervously. At least if I do, hopefully, it'll be in new and more exciting ways. He popped the container open, shaking out a few pills. Without hesitation, he swallowed them dry. A few seconds passed before he let out a groan and slumped forward. His body convulsed slightly, then went still. Anakin watched as Dermat's eyes fluttered open again, wide with confusion. What? Who are you? Anakin's voice remained impassive. Who I am is inconsequential. Who are you? Dermat's face twisted in bewilderment. I have no idea who I am. Do you know? Can you tell me? A smirk ghosted across Anakin's lips beneath his mask. He could leave the fool in complete ignorance, but where was the fun in that? You're the son of Commander Relon, a Republic hero. That's all you need to know. Dermat's brow furrowed. I'm the son of Commander Relon, a Republic hero. His voice was distant, his mind struggling to grasp onto something that no longer existed. With a flick of his wrist, Anakin ripped open the cage door with the force. I leave you to figure that out yourself. Enjoy your new life and get out of here. This place is about to blow. Dermat hesitated for only a second before turning on his heel and running as fast as he could. Before I go, I think I'm supposed to say thank you. His voice trailed off as he disappeared into the base's corridors. Vet watched him go, shaking her head. Wow. Too bad there isn't more of that drug. I got a few memories I wouldn't mind losing. Anakin tilted his head slightly. Should I take that personally, Vet? Vet smirked. Of course not. I could never forget you. She twirled one of her blasters. Now, can we move on? Zhorid interjected, her voice dripping with intrigue. You chose to spare him. Interesting. I wouldn't have done the same, but whatever you do must be the right decision. Her obsession with him was unmistakable. Anakin merely strode forward, ignoring her. As they exited the Republic crater base, he activated his communicator, calling in an airstrike. Moments later, the sky roared with the distant howl of Imperial bombers. Explosions rocked the earth, sending pillars of flame and smoke into the sky. The ground quaked as the Republic's so-called stronghold was obliterated. Anakin stood at the ridge, watching the devastation unfold. One of the two major resistance bases had been wiped off the map. Anyone still inside that crater was either dead or trapped beneath tons of rubble. Without a word, he turned on his heel and walked away. There was still much to be done. Anakin and his companions made their way back to the city, returning to Quinn. As they approached, the officer looked up from his datapad, setting it aside as he addressed Anakin. I must be honest, your success at both the satellite control station and the Republic crater outpost has surprised me, my lord, Quinn admitted, his voice laced with reluctant admiration. I had computed the likelihood of success as nearly negligible. However, my calculations were based on the capabilities of a typical Sith. He inclined his head slightly. Clearly, you are not a typical Sith. I will adjust future calibrations to account for your unprecedented abilities. Anakin wasn't offended, but he was somewhat amused that Quinn had attempted to quantify his skill in such a way. If anything, he said, his voice edged with dry humor, you should overestimate my capabilities. Quinn's expression remained impassive. If you don't mind, I'd prefer to be as accurate as possible. He straightened. Lord Barris is pleased with your progress. He says it's time to focus on your prime directive, and he awaits your contact. My barracks are yours. Activate the holo communicator in the next room to speak with him. The line is secure. Anakin gave him a measured look. Don't wander off. Quinn nodded crisply. I'll be right here if needed, my lord. Anakin stepped into the barracks and activated the holo communicator. The blue light flickered to life, revealing the towering, masked figure of Darth Barris, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression unreadable behind his ever-imposing mask. I hope you can see the smile on my face, apprentice, Barris intoned, his deep voice carrying a rare note of satisfaction. You are turning me into a true believer. Anakin smirked. Wait a minute. Let me pinch myself. Barris let out a dry chuckle. I'm sure you're impatient to complete your time on that little rock. His tone shifted, growing serious. With the satellite tower's data destroyed and Commander Relon's son neutralized, my spy's tracks are now covered. There is only one remaining threat: Relon himself. A pause. It's time to eliminate that threat. Permanently. Anakin's voice was cold, absolute. I'm going to wipe him off the face of this planet. Barris nodded approvingly. Ready and able. That's what makes you such a lethal and valuable asset. Relon has been embedded within enemy ranks for decades. The extent of his contribution to the Empire's interests is unparalleled. Anakin's tone was indifferent. It's time to retire him. He's served his purpose. Barris chuckled darkly. You took the words right out of my mouth, apprentice. His tone became sharp. The Jedi investigator must have no hard evidence that Relon was killed to silence him. It must not appear to be an execution. Annihilate everyone at his location. Anakin's crimson gaze burned with lethal intent. There won't be a heart left beating. Barris gave an approving nod. See to that. I've summoned Lieutenant Quinn. He will brief you on your final target. The transmission ended, and Anakin turned back to Quinn, who was already waiting for him, ever punctual. Your final target is the Bomara arms factory, Quinn stated. The Resistance has recently captured it and established it as their headquarters. A slow smirk spread beneath Anakin's mask. This would be a massacre, he thought. Quinn continued, his tone sharp with anticipation. An incursion into the Bomara arms factory will be a monumental feat. The thought of you laying waste to that place with the 501st Imperial Legion is exhilarating. Anakin's voice was cold, unwavering. We're on the same page, Lieutenant. Quinn nodded, a smirk of approval barely visible. That will make us an unstoppable force, my lord. He moved swiftly to the console, his fingers gliding over the controls as he began entering commands. All right. The Republic Command Center is buried deep inside the factory, the most heavily fortified installation on the entire planet. To reach Commander Relon, you'll have to cut through the facility's extensive defenses and personnel, which are considerable. Anakin's tone was composed, but there was an undeniable edge of steel behind his words. Give me a full rundown of their defenses. Quinn exhaled, his brow furrowed. Unknown, my lord. But the Resistance will certainly have state-of-the-art security measures, along with a battalion of advanced attack droids. As for manpower, he turned to another console, pulling up estimates. Inside the factory, we anticipate roughly 40,000 Resistance fighters, along with 10,000 of the Republic's best-trained soldiers. Anakin's eyes behind his mask narrowed slightly. And their leadership? Quinn's expression darkened. The Republic's high-ranking officer in command is a veteran of the last war. Intelligence on him is limited, but what little we have suggests he's a formidable strategist. Meanwhile, Relon's elite squadron has been behind some of the most precise, improbable Resistance victories on Bomara. Their reputation precedes them. They're nothing short of legendary. Legendary. The word held no weight for Anakin. It doesn't matter how experienced they are or how many victories they've earned. They will crumble beneath me like the rest. He would not repeat the mistakes of Mustafar. Not again. His voice was steady. I will overcome them. Be assured of that. Quinn straightened, his conviction unshaken. The Empire's cause here on Bomara will be significantly strengthened once they are eliminated. One final note. He hesitated, then continued, the Jedi investigator has been concentrating her efforts around the arms factory. I have her under minute-by-minute surveillance. If she becomes a problem, I'll contact you immediately via comlink. Anakin gave a brief nod. Sounds like a plan. Quinn saluted. I'm on top of it, my lord. And when the Bomara arms factory is reduced to a smoking husk, I'll be here to welcome you back. Without another word, Anakin turned and strode out, making his way to the nearest speeder. The engines roared to life as he shot toward the Galata Wilds outpost. Upon arrival, Anakin dismounted, his boots hitting the ground with a dull thud. His masked gaze swept across the outpost, locking onto a man standing near a tent. The man straightened at the sight of him and spoke up. My lord. My respects. How do you like Bomara so far? Doesn't seem like much, does it? Anakin's tone was flat. I thought this was an Imperial operation. The man smirked slightly, replying without hesitation. I thought the lieutenant would have told you. I'm Bomara, but I'm also a businessman. Patriotism is bad for business. So is death, but only to a point. His expression darkened slightly as he continued. Resistance stealth troops have been infiltrating Imperial outposts, launching quick strikes and vanishing without a trace. The Empire says they can't be beaten. I say they can. Anakin's interest piqued. A war profiteer, no doubt, but how could he be so sure these stealth units could be neutralized? It wasn't as if Anakin couldn't handle them himself, but the certainty in the man's voice made him question. And how, exactly, would you know how to counter them? The man chuckled. They say you don't see them until they kill you. But I built the tech they use to stay hidden. So that's why, Anakin mused. He's the reason the Empire has this issue in the first place. Their camps in the Gorinth wilds, the man continued. They've surrounded it with mines to keep strangers out. Watch your step. Here he handed over a small device. Use this to detect the stealthed fighters. They're fast, though. If I may offer some advice, strike quick and hard. Anakin took the device and wasted no time heading into the wilds. Activating the scanner, he exposed the hidden resistance fighters one by one, cutting them down in rapid succession. His movements were precise, relentless, each strike of his lightsaber carving through flesh and armor alike. As he delivered a final slash across a downed resistance soldier's chest, the battle was over. Returning to the outpost, Anakin found the man waiting, arms crossed. No more surprise attacks, the man said approvingly. Good. Captain Rigel is on holo. He wants a word with you. The holo table flickered to life, revealing the blue-tinted projection of Captain Rigel. The officer bowed slightly. My lord, allow me to express my deepest pleasure at working alongside you. Operation Breaking Point has been far more successful than I ever could have imagined. He paused for effect before adding, word is, the former Bomara Minister of Defense, Val Arjun, might actually come down to Bomara himself. He's playing right into our hands. Anakin exhaled through his mask, growing tired of this drawn-out conflict. I hope he does. I'll kill him myself. Rigel grinned. I hope so too. Now that the wilds are secured, we're ready for the final push. Colonel Vrain, head of the Imperial Conquest Consolidation Corps, has arrived to oversee the action. He's stationed at the Sundari outpost, within striking distance of the Resistance's main base, the Bomara Arms Factory. It's now or never. Anakin gave a slight nod and headed for a speeder. It's time for the 501st to meet their new general. Sundari Outpost. The outpost was alive with military activity as Anakin arrived. Troops moved in disciplined formations, vehicles idled in preparation, droids maintained their weapons, everything was in order. These soldiers were well trained, seasoned for war. As he strode through the base, a soldier approached. There was something familiar about him. The way he carried himself, the way he moved. Recognition struck like a bolt of lightning. The soldier snapped to attention and saluted sharply. "General. Captain Rex reporting for duty, sir." Anakin froze. For a brief moment, his thoughts spiraled. Rex? Here? What the hell is going on? First Thrawn, now Rex. At this point, he wouldn't even be surprised if Ahsoka was here as well. But another thought entered his mind, one that made his expression darken behind his mask. Could Obi-Wan be here too? But he pushed that thought away. First, he needed to understand why Rex was standing in front of him, wearing clone armor. Of all places, why was he here? Anakin's voice was steady, though his mind was racing. "How are you here? And why?" Then, quickly, he covered his tracks. He couldn't let Zhorid or Vet suspect anything unusual. "I thought you died in the unknown regions with the rest of the 501st. Zhorid tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable beneath her mask. Her silence was unnerving, almost spectral. Vet, on the other hand, crossed her arms and quirked an eyebrow. "Another friend of yours, hey?" she said, eyeing Rex. "So you weren't lying. Your friend here wears armor similar to Republic gear but different enough so he won't get shot on sight." Rex's gaze flickered between the two women before locking onto Anakin again. His voice was firm. "Friends of yours, General." There was an edge of suspicion in his tone. Anakin clenched his jaw behind his mask. This just got complicated. Anakin responded with a slight gesture, first toward Vet. "Yes." Then, towards Zhorid. "An unwanted stalker." Zhorid's gaze burned into him, intense and unwavering, but she said nothing. Rex, seemingly unfazed, continued. "Yeah, all of my brothers in arms from the 501st died during our escape. I was separated from Ahsoka when our ship crashed on a nearby moon." Before he could say more, Anakin grabbed him by the arm and, in an instant, used force speed to pull them away from prying ears. As they came to a stop in a secluded area, he turned back to Vet and Zhorid. "Wait here." Once alone, Anakin spoke. "All right, Rex. You can speak freely now." Rex took a steady breath before answering. "All right. When Ahsoka and the rest of us captured Maul, we brought him aboard the Venator. Everything was going fine until we hit the middle of hyperspace on our way to Coruscant. That's when it happened." His voice became tighter, laced with something Anakin rarely heard from him: pain. "We all received a direct order from the Chancellor himself. Order 66. We were forced to execute any and all Jedi." Anakin's heart pounded in his chest, though his expression remained unreadable beneath the mask. Rex's hands began to shake. That included Ahsoka. For a moment, Anakin's mind nearly shut down. Did he indirectly get Ahsoka killed? But Rex quickly continued. "I tried to resist. I fought against it, but I still opened fire on her. She held her own against us, barely. You guys probably already know the rest. So I won't be writing this." Anakin's mind raced as he pieced it all together. So, Ahsoka, Rex, and possibly even Maul could have survived the crash. But half of the 501st had died. The other half were the ones who had stood beside him as he stormed the Jedi Temple. So Fives was right. The inhibitor chips had forced the clones to slaughter their Jedi generals without hesitation. That was the answer, the tragedy of it all. Ahsoka. The one Jedi he had cared for more than anyone, the one the Order had abandoned. The Jedi would have let her be executed if he hadn't exposed Barriss Offee as the true culprit behind the bombing. They had turned their backs on her. They didn't deserve her. And Obi-Wan, he had done nothing to help. Anakin's hand clenched into a fist. He remembered all the times Obi-Wan had tried to justify the Council's actions, tried to get Anakin to accept their hypocrisy. And I was supposed to just accept it. But no, he shoved those thoughts aside. This wasn't the time for them. His voice was calm but firm. So why are you here? And judging by the fact that you found me, you must already know what I've done. There was no regret in his voice. Anakin felt little remorse for what he had done to the Jedi. The only thing he regretted was the younglings there betrayed, confused faces as they realized the person they had looked up to had become their executioner. That was something he would never forget. If only I had more clarity back then. Maybe I could have found another way. But what's done is done. There was no point in dwelling on it any longer. Rex exhaled and removed his helmet, looking Anakin directly in the eyes. You know, General, at first, I thought you were entirely responsible for your actions. Anakin remained silent, waiting. But the being showed me the truth who was really responsible. The Chancellor. Anakin's fingers curled slightly at the mention of Palpatine. Rex continued. I get why you killed the Jedi. They never treated you or Ahsoka the way you deserved. Most of them never cared about us clones, either. But you did. Ahsoka did. Plo Koon did. The rest. He shook his head. We were just tools to them. There was a long silence between them before Rex spoke again. I managed to track you down here. Before Order 66, my loyalties were to the Republic first, and you second. He let out a bitter chuckle. But now? Now that my thoughts are my own? My choices are my own. His voice grew firm, unwavering. I know the truth. And knowing what truly happened, knowing you are still my general, my loyalty is to you. Rex placed his helmet back on. Not to the Republic. Not to the Empire. Only to you. Anakin stood stunned for a moment. A small part of him had expected Rex to berate him for the Jedi slaughter, to look at him with disappointment or scorn. But it was clear now Rex didn't agree with what had happened, but he understood it. He saw the bigger picture. And despite everything, he was still here. Still standing by Anakin's side. Anakin slowly reached out his hand. Rex grasped it without hesitation, a firm, steady shake between soldier and commander, between brothers in arms. Glad to have you back, Anakin said with quiet conviction. Then, as he pulled his hand back, a question burned in his mind, one that had been festering ever since Thrawn had appeared in this timeline. I need to ask something important. Ask away, General, Rex replied, his tone respectful but alert. Anakin's eyes narrowed beneath his mask. Is there any way for you to reveal my past? Or anything about the future to anyone? Rex hesitated just a moment before answering, No, General. The being that brought us here, it made sure of that. He exhaled slowly. Even if I wanted to talk, I couldn't. As soon as I slip up or even start to say something off, my mouth speaks your cover story instead. Anakin's brow furrowed. Rex continued. It's like an imprint in my head. A failsafe. It makes me say the right things, keeps the truth buried unless you're the one who reveals it first. Until the moment you choose to tell the galaxy who you really are, where you come from, I physically can't say anything about our past. Or the future. Anakin slowly nodded. A strange wave of relief washed over him. So no one from his past could expose him, not unless he chose to reveal the truth first. That meant his plans remained intact. His secrets were still his. But then confusion crept in. The more he heard about this being, the stranger the pieces became. It had brought him here, but it had also brought Rex. And Thrawn. And possibly others. It had locked their tongues with safeguards, forcing them to follow his fabricated story like puppets strung with precision. And I'm the only one who can cut the strings. He shook his head slightly. So much was still unclear. Thanks for answering, Anakin finally said. Now listen carefully. Go gather the 501st. You're their new captain. We'll be holding a speech soon. I want to properly introduce ourselves to them. Rex nodded. Understood. I also want you to start selecting officers. Choose them based on ability and competence, not rank, not bloodlines. If someone deserves a promotion, give it to them. I trust your judgment. Rex saluted sharply. Yes, sir. Without another word, he turned and moved with purpose, already preparing to carry out his task. Anakin stood still for a moment, watching his old friend disappear into the ranks of the base. There was something satisfying about it. Something grounding. He turned and made his way back toward the command center, where his companions Vet and Zhorid were waiting. As they walked together into the heart of the base, Anakin approached a plump officer stationed near a console. The man noticed him immediately, straightening his posture and offering a bow, his jowls quivering slightly from the motion. "My lord," he said with a reverent tone. "Let me be the first to tell you how deeply appreciated your efforts have been. Your reputation precedes you. Bombara's resistance is on its last, pitiful gasp, and we have you to thank. It won't be long before the corpse of former Defense Minister Val Arjun is cold in the ground." Anakin's thoughts lingered on the mention of Arjun. The former minister had once been the cornerstone of Bomara defiance, now, the very reason it would all soon collapse. "Has the former minister actually come to Bomara?" Anakin asked, curious if the man had truly crawled back to watch the end of his legacy. Colonel Vrain, the plump officer, gave a slight shrug, his mouth curling into a sly smirk. "That's the rumor, but even if he hasn't yet, once Operation Breaking Point succeeds, his death is inevitable. The resistance, aided by the Republic, has entrenched itself inside the Bomara arms factory. It's a fortress, no doubt, but not an impenetrable one. Not with a force like yours bearing down on it." Anakin's gaze darkened behind the mask, his voice low and cold. "The factory will fall tomorrow. I vow it." Vrain gave a satisfied nod, his tone oily with flattery. "If we may impose on you for one final task in service of the glorious Empire. When your forces breach the factory, cut off its power. Use the chaos to shut down the internal security systems. Once that happens, your troops will have far fewer obstacles sweeping the facility. And if you find Val Arjun..." His eyes narrowed, "Kill him." Anakin doubted Val Arjun had the courage to stand and fight with his men. A man like him would be cowering in some reinforced room, hoping others would die for his mistakes. "It's time we cut the head off this serpent," Anakin said, his voice sharp as a vibroblade. Colonel Vrain gave a slight bow again, tone growing serious. "Just be wary, my lord. Word is, the resistance inside the factory isn't alone. The Republic has fortified their numbers. They'll be well trained, well equipped, and ready to die for their cause. For anyone else, this would be suicide." His lips curled into a crooked smile. "But I have a good feeling about you." Anakin turned away without another word. It was time to meet the governor. He made his way through the command center, ascending in a lift that hummed with power. As the doors parted, the upper level stretched before him in stark, imperial coldness. And at the center of it he saw her. Darth Lacris. A human woman, cloaked in dark robes, stood with her hand outstretched, fingers curled in a crushing gesture. Suspended midair, a Bomaran official clawed helplessly at his throat, gasping as he fought against her invisible grip. "Do you know the worst part, former governor?" Lacris asked, her voice chilling, eyes alight with cruel amusement. I didn't," the man wheezed, choking as his face flushed red. "Exactly," she hissed. "You didn't even own up to your mistakes." Her grip tightened. The man convulsed. She tilted her head slightly, a smile pulling at the corners of her lips. "That's why the Dark Council gave this planet to me." "Please." The former governor gasped, desperation clinging to each word. Anakin didn't care. It was clear to him the man brought this on himself. Whatever chaos had unfolded on Bomara, the resistance, the loss of control, the Republic's silent hand, it could all be traced back to weak leadership. He watched silently, offering no interference. Lacris turned to glance at him, a gleam of cruelty in her eye. "Watch and enjoy." A sickening crack echoed through the chamber, the sound of bone and cartilage giving way, followed by a heavy thud as the governor's corpse hit the floor. Limp. "Forgotten. I'm Darth Lacris," she said, turning to him with calm poise, "apprentice of Darth Mar. I've been tasked with cleansing this world of rebellion and filth. I'm glad you came, your kind always brings dignity. You're an odd one, no doubt, but you're a rising star in the Empire. You lead like a natural." Anakin took a few steps forward, voice firm beneath the modulated hiss of his mask. "Your master sent for a general. I'm here to secure your rule on Bomara. And last I checked, there's only one Darth Lacris in this room." Lacris chuckled, a low, satisfied sound. "That's exactly what I like to hear. And I don't think you'll disappoint me, the famous next coming of Darth Revan, so they whisper. I asked Lord Mar to send me the best general he could. He gave me you. And as you've likely noticed, Bomara has problems." She reached into her robes and produced a compact hollow communicator. It flared to life, projecting the grainy image of a battle-worn human man. His voice carried the weight of years in the trenches, and yet it was full of fire. "My friends in the Resistance," he began. "I won't take much of your time. The Empire says it owns Bomara. The Republic claims to defend it, but they're gone." He paused, his voice tightening. "You and I know Bomara was won with sweat and blood. And my boys? We'll stand by your side till the last man falls." The transmission ended with a flicker. Lacris pocketed the device. In his mind, Anakin sized the man up. That had to be the Resistance Commander Grand Marshal Czecheta. It all made sense now. The Empire wasn't struggling because the Resistance was strong, it was struggling because its own leadership was weak. Czecheta was a seasoned leader, charismatic and dangerous, with nothing to lose and everything to fight for. Meanwhile, most of the Empire's best officers were deployed elsewhere, leaving Bomara to be run by scraps. But the balance was about to shift. Czecheta was about to meet his match. That was Czecheta, Lacris confirmed. Formerly of the Republic Army. Officially, he and his troops went rogue after the Republic pulled out of this sector. Since then, they've fortified the Bomara arms factory, holding out under siege and lending their might to the Resistance. You've probably encountered their scouts already. Yeah, Anakin replied, almost casually. Met them before. Now they're dead. If these men are ex-Republic, aren't they violating the treaty? Not officially, Lacris sneered. So long as the Republic denies involvement, it remains a shadow war. They fund Czecheta's revolution in secret. Drop supplies. Play innocent. But we both know their true aim, they want the arms factory. As governor, I say we take it before they turn this planet into their next beachhead. Anakin's interest peaked. The arms factory. Home of the galaxy's finest engineers. As an engineer himself, Anakin saw the opportunity it presented once it fell. He could stay behind for a few weeks, dig into their secrets, and repurpose the factory's brilliance for his own designs. Lacris continued, pacing like a commander inspecting her troops. Its generators are virtually inexhaustible. Its defenses are top tier. Barricades block our scans, shielding the Resistance from our gaze. They've carved out peace and privacy in the very heart of our world. Anakin's mind worked like a machine, cycling through possibilities. No fortress is impenetrable, he said. There's always a flaw, some structural weakness. A vulnerability. Traitors in the ranks. Doesn't matter. I'll find it. Lacris nodded approvingly. If the previous governor had done his job, we'd already know. But now we're out of time. Czecheta must fall. And if we can find proof of the Republic's involvement, we'll expose them to the galaxy, show the cowards for what they are. Anakin turned, already preparing for war. No need to rush in blind, we'll plan carefully. But I give you my word, the arms factory will fall by tomorrow. Then go. Lacris said, her eyes gleaming. Crush their defenses, lower the barricades, and I will have every eye and ear at your back. And if you can bring me proof of the Republic's treachery. Good hunting, General. Time skip, nighttime. Bomara Arms Factory Forward Command. The dark night sky hovered behind clouds of smoke and ash as the gathered soldiers of the 501st Legion stood at perfect attention. Rows upon rows of black and blue armored troopers lined the assembly grounds, the symbol of the Empire gleaming on their pauldrons. They changed their colors from the red stripes to the blue one in honor of their new general. At the front of the formation stood Anakin Skywalker, towering on a podium like a statue of iron and fire. To his right, Captain Rex stood firm, helmet on, silent and unshakable, the very embodiment of loyalty and discipline. It was time for the new general to address his men. But first, Rex stepped forward, his voice cutting through the heavy silence like a blade. The name's Rex. You will call me Captain or Sir. Am I understood? Sir, yes sir. The 501st roared in perfect unison, saluting with synchronized precision. Rex continued, his tone unrelenting and proud. In this coming battle, we are brothers in arms. We stand united. Am I understood? Sir, yes sir. Came the chorus once again. You may be wondering why you should place your faith in the general, Rex went on, his voice thick with both reverence and certainty. But believe me when I say he's led many good men into battle, and we've come out victorious. Time and again. Am I understood? Sir, yes sir. The 501st echoed, their voices like thunder across the field. Rex stepped back and saluted. It was Anakin's cue. With calm authority, he stepped forward. His presence was undeniable, electric, commanding, untamed. You can call me General, or Vader, he began, his voice resonating with a dangerous charisma. Tomorrow, I will lead you, my brave men. To me, you are not just numbers. You are brothers in arms. I will not send you to your deaths without a plan. He paused, his voice firm and filled with conviction. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what imperial bloodline runs in your veins. You have your chance to prove yourselves right here, on this very planet. He stepped forward, eyes narrowing beneath the mask. Our enemies, the Resistance and their pathetic Republic allies, they think they can drive us off this rock. But they don't understand who we are. We are the 501st, the greatest legion to ever march across the stars. We have the finest training, the strongest warriors. We are the shield and sword of the Empire. Raise your arms against our enemies. March with me. And show these rebels the might of the 501st Imperial Legion. His voice exploded across the base, booming like the roar of a star destroyer. For the Empire. The 501st erupted, blasters raised high, boots stomping in perfect rhythm. The very ground seemed to shake with their chants. All hail Vader! All hail Vader! All hail Vader! Anakin descended from the stage, the air crackling with energy. He immediately issued orders. Artillery companies were to set up on the mountains overlooking the army's factory. With the wilds secured, there would be no surprises. He dispatched Vet and Rex on a sabotage mission, disable the enemy guns, and steal control of the arms factory barricades. Anakin remained behind, flanked by Zhorid. As they were speaking, a familiar presence entered the camp. Nox. He noticed her the moment she appeared. She called out to him with a wave, and before he could react, she leapt into his arms. Half surprised, Anakin caught her, holding her briefly before letting go. Kem Val loomed behind her, stoic as ever. Anakin smirked. Let me guess, you're here for an artifact. Right on the credits, Nox replied with a mischievous grin. I need to fight through the arms factory and dive into a hole full of toxic chemicals. Anakin's eyes narrowed behind his mask. And how exactly are you planning to do that? He was both amused and exasperated. It was just like Nox coming up with absolutely insane plans and somehow making them work. She twirled a strand of her hair, casual as ever. Well, I hunted down and kidnapped an ex-Imperial scientist. He refused to help at first, so I showed him my perspective. Long story short, he made me a serum. I'm immune to the toxins now. Anakin felt a metaphorical sweat drop forming. He wasn't sure who was more insane, Zhorid or Nox. And speaking of the two, Zhorid had removed her mask and was glaring daggers at Nox. Nox noticed. Her gaze sharpened, a quiet fury in her voice. Who's this? Anakin sighed, tired already. This is Zhorid, daughter of the late Jadis. And my unwanted stalker. Nox's eyes locked onto Zhorid, her voice low, almost too calm. But there was a blade hidden in her tone. I hope you're not trying to hurt Anakin. Because if I find out you have in any way, I will personally kill you. And your obsessive little girl act won't save you. For a split second, something dangerous flickered across Nox's face. Possession. Fury. Warning. Zhorid smirked, stepping forward. Takes one to know one. But I assure you I love Anakin more. He won't need you anymore. You can go now. That was enough for Anakin. His voice was cold and final. Zhorid, give me a moment with Nox. I want this night to end in peace. Zhorid gave him a hard, bitter look, but eventually turned and walked away, her heels clicking like a warning bell in the night. Nox spoke up quickly, her tone sharp and accusing. So, you like her now? Anakin's eyes widened behind the mask. No, I don't like her. In fact, I actively try to avoid her whenever possible. Nox's expression brightened instantly, the storm in her eyes melting away into playfulness. Well, if that had been the case, I'd have had to kill you, she said with a teasing smile. Anakin blinked. Wait, you were actually going to try and kill me if I said yes? Nox laughed, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. No. I'm just joking. But seriously, stay away from her. I have a really bad feeling about her. Trust me, Anakin said, voice low, you and me both. He paused, the weariness of the day beginning to weigh on his shoulders. Anyway, I'm going to get some rest. If you want to join the battle, be up by early morning. Sure thing, Anakin. Will do. He gave her a casual wave and turned to leave, his dark silhouette fading into the dim light of the base. Nox watched him go, her expression shifting. In her mind, one thing was crystal clear: she wouldn't let anyone get in the way of her and Anakin. Not now. Not ever. No one understood him like she did. And he was the only one who truly understood her. That connection was sacred. She would not allow some harlot to sink her claws into her prince. Her eyes never left his retreating figure. Possessiveness flickered like fire behind her calm mask. Without a sound, she slipped into the shadows, vanishing like smoke. I am actually cringing internally for writing this, but it must be done, so bear with me, guys. Nox knew exactly where she needed to be. She waited in the silence, her presence cloaked by the shadows. Just a few moments longer. Then, she saw her Zhorid approaching a particular tent with calculated steps. Nox stepped out from the darkness, her voice laced with venom. Well, look who we have here. Zhorid froze mid-step, her eyes flashing into a death glare. Nothing much, she replied coldly, her lips twisting into a wicked grin. Just marking my territory. A crazed glint danced in her expression. Nox chuckled darkly, her gaze razor-sharp. And what do you think you'll accomplish here? Even if I weren't around, Anakin would kill you before you could utter your next breath. She took a step forward, her voice low and filled with threat. But I'll save him the trouble, and deal with you myself. Zhorid sneered. You think I don't know what I'm doing? I've been watching him for a long time. I know how he thinks. I know what he wants. You? You know nothing. Her smile stretched unnaturally. I was just going to show him what I've learned, but first, I need to get rid of his little pet. After all, I can't stand your face. Nox tilted her head, a smirk tugging at her lips. Well, I'll take the compliments. But you're a fool to think I didn't come prepared. Without another word, Zhorid ignited her lightsaber with a snap hiss, crimson light washing across her face. Nox didn't flinch. Instead, with the Force, she summoned a hidden blaster from beneath her cloak and fired a stun bolt, charged and calibrated to paralyze. It hit Zhorid square in the chest. She collapsed, frozen, her muscles locked, unable to speak or move. Nox strolled over with a disturbing calm, crouched beside her, and grabbed her by the face, forcing their eyes to meet. You were never a rival, she whispered coldly. Not only am I stronger, faster, and more powerful, I'm smarter. Her grip tightened. You see, if you know what's good for you, you'll leave Anakin alone and get off this planet tonight. Nox's eyes darkened, her obsession leaking through like poison in the air. And you know what? I should thank you. If it weren't for you, I might never have understood this side of myself. Zhorid's eyes widened in pure fear. Nox leaned closer, her voice low and deadly. Unlike you, I actually listen to Anakin. I pay attention. He wanted you gone. And now, I'm going to make that happen. She stood, dusted herself off with a little twirl, and turned away. But if you don't listen, she sang sweetly over her shoulder, I will kill you. She hummed softly to herself as she skipped off into the night. What neither of them knew, was that Anakin had witnessed the entire confrontation from the shadows. He stood still, arms crossed, silently digesting what he'd seen. He had already anticipated that Zhorid would try something tonight, something disgusting, manipulative. He had been ready to end her, finally and completely. But Nox had beaten him to it. What surprised him, though, was the side of Nox he had just witnessed. He'd never seen that version of her before, possessive, cold, surgical. And he'd be lying to himself if he said he wasn't, intrigued. Still, one thing was clear now, Zhorid wasn't working with Jadis, nor did she know anything meaningful. Her reason for holding back wasn't fear, it was obsession. She'd been studying him. Watching. Waiting. Anakin had no intention of letting that continue. With that final thought, he turned and made his way back to his quarters. The base was quiet now. He let sleep take him, knowing tomorrow, the real war would begin. Time skip, early morning. Anakin stood before the forward command of the Bomara Arms factory, his eyes fixed on the horizon as the winds carried the distant hum of battle. The 501st had returned, victorious, alongside Vet and Rex. Their mission was a success. Zhorid had left under the thin veil of a fabricated excuse, Dark Council matters. But only Anakin and Nox knew the truth behind her departure. Without hesitation, Anakin activated his comms. Begin the assault. The battlefield erupted. The first wave of Imperial troops surged forward, blaster fire cracking through the air like a violent symphony. Resistance fighters answered in kind, their cannons roaring, but instead of destruction, their weapons malfunctioned. Explosions tore through their own emplacements, ripping small breaches into the perimeter walls. Sabotage had done its work. Anakin observed the chaos with cold precision. He gave Rex a subtle nod. In response, Rex pressed a button on his remote, causing the barricades blocking the entrance to the arms factory to retract. The 501st charged, storming through the gaps like a tidal wave. The resistance attempted to fall back into the factory, but before they could regroup, Imperial artillery from the distant mountains opened fire. Barrages of energy and explosive shells rained death from above. The colossal Barga platforms unleashed their wrath, annihilating the bulk of the resistance forces and vaporizing the reinforcements spilling out of the factory gates. Smoke began to blanket the battlefield, rolling across the torn earth. Through the haze, 2 crimson lightsabers ignited, their glow piercing the fog as screams echoed all around. Anakin waded into the chaos, moving with lethal grace. His lightsaber flashed like a living thing, cutting down enemy after enemy. Precision, speed, devastation, he was unstoppable. Suddenly, a massive battle droid with spider-like legs lumbered into view. Its blasters locked onto him and opened fire. Anakin sprinted directly at it, deflecting the incoming bolts effortlessly. He vaulted onto its leg, racing upward as it launched a volley of rockets. With a burst of power, he used the leg as a springboard and hurled himself into the air. Mid-flight, he reached out with the force, seizing the rockets and hurling them back toward the droid. The resulting explosion rocked the battlefield, staggering the mechanical beast. Before it could recover, Anakin descended like a hammer of vengeance, his blade cleaving through its chassis. The droid collapsed in a heap of sparking debris. Without pausing, Anakin pressed forward alongside the 501st, cutting a swath through the entrance of the arms factory. The Imperials were gaining ground quickly, disabling power systems and internal defenses as they advanced deeper into enemy territory. Suddenly, the factory's loudspeakers crackled to life. "This is Grand Marshal Czecheta to all personnel. Last week we were outnumbered 10-1 and we still beat back the imps. Victory is coming, boys. Keep this up, and we all go home." But instead of demoralizing the 501st, Czecheta's defiant words only hardened their resolve. The more the Republic rallied, the more ferociously the 501st fought. As fresh waves of Republic soldiers poured in to bolster the defense, the battle intensified. The speakers blared again, but their words were drowned out by violence. Kem Val smashed a Republic trooper to the ground, crushing his skull beneath his boot. He growled, blood dripping from his fingers. "Little man talks too much. I will devour him if he keeps talking." "Focus on the fight, big guy," Vet snapped, firing her blaster pistol into a cluster of enemy soldiers. "We've got bigger problems to deal with." Rex, cool and efficient, unleashed a storm of fire from his twin pistols. "Keep it up, men. Don't give them time to regroup." The 501st surged forward, grenades flying, formations tightening. They moved with brutal coordination, their elite training and battlefield experience carving a path through the heart of the resistance. The arms factory would fall and nothing would stand in their way. "Grand Marshal Czecheta here. I want to talk about sacrifice. My troops and we gave up our homes in the Republic. But you? You didn't get a choice. Your planet was stolen from you. And now you're giving up everything to get it back. That's the brutal truth about this battle. Right now, the 501st are carving a bloody path through the assembly hall. Reinforcements, seasoned Republic troopers have finally arrived, giving much-needed backup to the beaten-down defenders. But the 501st, flanked by Vader, Nox, Vet, and Kem Val, were unstoppable. Then the loudspeakers roared to life again. "This is Grand Marshal Czecheta. I've been hearing some grumbling lately, people saying the Republic abandoned Bomara. Look, I may not wear the uniform anymore, but I'm still a patriot. So don't say that shit to my face." He paused, voice steel hard. "Maybe the treaty didn't leave us much of a choice. But don't you think for one second that the people of the Republic aren't behind you?" As the 501st secured the lower levels, a dark-skinned man sprinted away through the chaos. Anakin turned sharply Val Arjun. With a flick of his wrist and a deadly saber throw, he impaled the former defense minister straight through the heart, ending his life with cold precision. Time was running short. "Rex, Nox, Vet, Kem, handle the rest." "I'm moving ahead," Anakin ordered. "Nox, we've got this. You can count on us." "Understood, General," Rex said, dispatching the last resistance fighter with brutal efficiency. Anakin sprinted down the corridor, veered left, and reached a console. He began slicing into it, searching for evidence of Republic involvement on Bomara. He opened a hollow channel. Darth Lacris, can you read me? The 501st and I have broken into the Bomara arms factory. First floors cleared. Lacris' flickering hologram snapped into view. I hear you clearly will start scanning the interior now that the barricades are down. Suddenly, the holo flickered violently. Hold on, someone's cutting through the interference. Then, like a ghost in full battle armor, Grand Marshal Czecheta hijacked the transmission. Pardon the interruption. Grand Marshal Czecheta here, formerly of the Republic Army. Anakin stepped forward. You can call me Vader. General of the 501st. And we're currently storming your position. Czecheta scoffed. So you're the new governor's lapdog. A damn shame a Republic war hero like you reduced to working for the imps. They call you the hero of no fear out in the unknown regions, don't they? I had a chat with some of your old Jedi pals. Let's just say, they're not too fond of you these days. Anakin didn't flinch. He expected as much. Not everyone from his past would be an ally. But now he was curious. Who made it? He wasn't worried. His conversation with Rex confirmed they hadn't talked, and he saw Czecheta's ploy for what it was, an attempt to emotionally destabilize him. But that version of himself was long gone. He'd been reborn stronger, more controlled, more dangerous than ever. Czecheta continued, voice laced with malice. I'm not stupid. Once I saw you were planning to lower our defenses and send your little legion to our doorstep, I called in some friends. A Republic trooper stepped forward, followed by a Togruta male with a lightsaber at his side. The Jedi introduced himself first. Jedi Knight Relon Nyes, reporting. The soldier snapped to attention. Tempest Squad Commander. Reporting for duty. Czecheta gestured proudly. Fresh volunteers on temporary leave to assist the Bomara resistance. Just a little taste of what's coming. Anakin's eyes narrowed behind his mask. You expect me to believe these people are acting without Republic orders? This is a blatant violation of the treaty. You're supporting an insurgency. Czecheta turned. Relon, are you here under Republic orders? The Jedi answered without hesitation. No, sir. There you have it, Czecheta smirked. Relon ignited his lightsaber. Go. Go. Anakin's saber roared to life. Blades clashed in a flash of fury. He met the Jedi's assault with raw, overwhelming strength, smashing through his defenses and driving him back. In a split-second pivot, Anakin slashed clean through the Tempest commander, slicing him in half. Relon surged back into the fight, unleashing a frenzied barrage of attacks. Anakin blocked each blow with brutal precision, his counter-strikes calculated and punishing. He slammed an elbow into the Jedi's face, stunning him, then twirled his lightsaber end. In one swift, ruthless stroke severed his head. The battle was over. Anakin stepped over to the console once more, checking to see if the channel was still active. Lacris reappeared on the hologram. Can you hear me? This channel, can you hear me? The channel's still open. Did Czecheta send a Jedi? Anakin responded immediately, accompanied by a Special Forces commander. The commander asserted they weren't affiliated with the Republic. Lacris narrowed her gaze. I'm sure he did. My forces are conducting a full scan of the factory now that the defenses are down. I'll patch you into the report. An Imperial officer materialized on the hologram. My lord, we're detecting unusual signals coming from inside the factory. It appears to be a hyperspace beacon. That shouldn't be possible, it must have taken them decades. Lacris cut back in, her tone sharp. Never underestimate their engineers or their resources. What can it do? The officer replied, face pale. In theory, starships could lock onto the beacon and jump in system almost directly overhead. Lacris's voice turned urgent. The Republic is flying reinforcements straight to the Bomara arms factory, bypassing our entire defensive perimeter. Anakin's tone remained calm, measured. Then you know where to look. Scan for enemy transports approaching the factory. The officer tapped rapidly at his console. Picking up dozens of ships. Silhouettes match Republic Special Forces Triumph class. Lacris reappeared on the hologram, now visibly tense. This is how they operated during the war: multiple strike teams, hitting strategic objectives, one Jedi assigned to each military squad. They took entire planets like this. And they know we see them. They're not even trying to hide it. They're rushing to land now. Anakin responded calmly, unwavering. Scramble the fighters. If they're heading to the factory, the 501st and I will stop them from the ground. Lacris nodded. Take out those landing platforms and guidance systems. I'll dispatch attack squadrons to blast those ships out of the sky. Fail me now, and we perish with Bomara. Anakin quickly rejoined the 501st, who were already locked in combat within the second courtyard positioned between the factory and the Republic command station toward the rear. Side by side, Anakin and the 501st systematically destroyed every hyperspace beacon just as the first assault ship was blown out of the sky. Imperial comms crackled with energy. This is Darth Lacris. Our ships are closing in on the Republic transports. Keep destroying those landing pads, there will be no escape for the enemy. The battle raged on. Nox found her crater as she had planned, wishing Anakin luck before diving in head first. The 501st had made it halfway through clearing the courtyard. Lacris's voice echoed again through comms. Attack squadron engaged, we've downed 6 Republic transports. I'm calling in additional ground-air weaponry. As the last Republic soldier fell in the courtyard, the 501st secured the area. Lacris came back online. Only a few targets remain airborne and they've got nowhere left to go. But one transport slipped past us. I'm sending in more air support. Intercept that ship at the factory's upper landing pad. No one survives this attack. Anakin charged down an adjacent corridor as the 501st continued their sweep, clearing out what remained of the Republic presence. A captain of the Special Forces team spoke urgently into his earpiece. The factory is under attack. Headquarters has been breached, casualties are severe. The voice on the other end belonged to none other than Relon himself. Keep your wits about you, Captain. What do we know of the enemy? The captain's voice was tense. Target is carving a bloody path in this direction. Unconfirmed reports say it's a Sith commanding a legion far behind him. Anakin impaled a soldier straight through the heart, then kicked the lifeless body to the ground with merciless finality. He took another step forward. First, I'm going to kill your men, he said coldly. Then I'm going to kill you, Relon. The Special Forces squad raised their blasters, training them on Anakin. Commander, contact confirmed, the captain said. The enemy is Sith. Repeat, the enemy is. I can see that, Captain, Relon interrupted, standing now, his graying hair a stark reminder of his age and long years of service. Shut up. The captain stepped forward, placing a portable hollow communicator on the ground. Relon's image flickered to life. Sith, he said, his voice calm yet resolute, I know why you're here. Be aware, these are the finest troops I've commanded in all my decades of duty. Anakin replied without hesitation. That doesn't matter. They're already dead. Captain Eigen, Relon ordered, engage at will and hold the line. I'm on my way with reinforcements. Relon out. Captain Eigen stepped forward. You're about to find out what we're made of. Anakin had heard these words before. You're made of bones that break and blood that spills. You don't intimidate us, Eigen snapped. We've killed your kind before. Anakin chuckled darkly. You've never even seen my kind before. You're about to find out otherwise. Men attack. Anakin ignited his lightsaber in a flash of red light, immediately deflecting a barrage of blaster bolts. He redirected the fire, striking one soldier down, then ended another with a swift, surgical slash. With a mere gesture, he used the force to snap another soldier's neck. He turned, blade glowing, and delivered a clean, devastating strike across the captain's side. Captain Eigen dropped to his knees, blood bubbling from his mouth as he coughed violently. "The commander, he should have been here by now," he gasped. Anakin stood over him. "It seems your commander left you to die." "No, he's safe," the captain murmured, voice fading. "All that matters, is he's safe." Relon appeared alone, stepping into the room as he deactivated the surveillance systems one by one. "Please," he said softly, "enough of this." "Commander, no. Run. Save yourself." Eigen cried, reaching out weakly. Relon looked down at him. "Just put him out of his misery, Sith." But Anakin didn't move. He was curious now, wondering if Relon would truly kill his most loyal man. "No," Anakin said, stepping back. "You pull the trigger. After all this, your men." Captain Eigen stared, confusion clouding his pain-stricken eyes. "Commander? What does this mean?" Without a word, Relon drew his blaster, leveled it at the captain's head. "Goodbye, Captain." "No. I can't believe." The bolt fired. Captain Eigen slumped over, dead. Relon lowered the weapon. "It's unfortunate they were on the wrong side. They were excellent soldiers, exceptional men." Anakin watched him carefully. "With time, I could have turned them. They were loyal even in death. Why didn't you convert them to our cause?" "I follow Barris's orders to the letter," Relon replied. "Recruitment was never my purpose here. I served for the glory of the Empire. But the life of a spy is a slippery one. In essence, I had to become a Republic soldier. And I've done things against the Empire that have sickened me. But for the greater good, Commander," Anakin said, voice quiet, almost respectful. Relon nodded slowly. "I have lived believing, hoping that was the case, friend. Today was inevitable. I knew Lord Barris would one day eliminate me. But I am proud to have been of service all this time." Anakin met his gaze. "Then I'm honored to be the one to kill you." Relon took a breath. "Before I embrace my end, there is one thing I must know." His voice cracked slightly. "My son. He was the only thing in this world that was truly mine. And in love, or weakness, I told him my secrets." He staggered over to a nearby console, leaning against it for support. I know you had to cover my tracks. But please, tell me, did he face his fate well?" Anakin leaned in close to Relon's ear and whispered, "He's alive. I only used a drug to erase his memory. But I made sure he knows his father was Commander Relon, a Republic war hero." He stepped back. Relon turned around slowly, a grim expression settling on his face. "Thanks for giving him a quick end," he said, clearly playing along. "When they find my corpse," Relon continued, his voice heavy with determination, "there must be evidence of a valiant fight." He drew his blaster pistol and took aim. "We must make this look convincing, Sith. So I won't hold back. I'll fight you as if you were my mortal enemy." Anakin felt no hesitation. No remorse. He ignited his crimson lightsaber, crossing it before him, ready to strike. "It gives me no pleasure to cut you down, Relon," he said flatly. "Our duty is often difficult, my friend." They began to circle each other like predators. Relon gave a final nod. "Tell Lord Barris it was my great honor to serve him." In one swift, lethal motion, Anakin struck. When the dust settled, it was Anakin who remained standing. He didn't look back. His footsteps echoed as he made his way toward the landing pads. As he approached, he spotted Marshal Czecheta near a transport vessel flanked by two figures. As he drew closer, the truth became clear: they were Jedi. "The fleet may be lost," said one of them, "but my Padawan and I can hold the Imperials while you regroup." Czecheta's voice was firm. "No. You've got your ship, and we've got a few of our own. I want you to get the non-combatants and the wounded off Bomara." When they saw Anakin approaching, the Jedi ignited their lightsabers. Grand Marshal Czecheta muttered, "We'll handle this first." He looked Anakin over with a hint of grudging respect. "You're damn tough, you know that? I should have expected this. Hero with no fear." Anakin's voice was steady. "If we'd tried talking from the beginning, we might not be in this mess." Czecheta smirked. "Anything's possible, I suppose. I've got Jedi at my back and the finest armor Bomara arms ever designed. Ignore the scratches." The Jedi Knight stepped forward. "We can cover your escape." Czecheta rolled his shoulders, preparing for the fight. "Nah. Let's see what an old man can still do for his troops." The Jedi surged forward. Anakin reacted instantly. He drew his lightsaber, parrying their initial strikes. With a powerful force push, he flung the Jedi Master backward. Then, with lightning-fast precision, he overwhelmed the Padawan and drove his blade straight through the young Jedi's heart. Czecheta roared and charged with a vibro club, swinging it with all his strength. Anakin ducked smoothly, responding with a crushing kick that sent the Marshal sprawling. Using the Force, Anakin slammed him into the ground and hurled the heavy-set commander into the transport, the impact breaking bones and sending him crumpling to the floor. The Jedi Knight, overcome by rage at his Padawan's death, rushed in blindly. Anakin responded with a vicious lightsaber throw. The blade spun through the air and impaled the Jedi through the stomach. He collapsed in a heap. Retracting the blade, Anakin walked over to the injured Marshal, who looked up at him, clutching his stomach. "Good fight," Czecheta wheezed. You've got something I don't have anymore." "I have the Force," Anakin replied coolly. "This fight was never fair for you." "Maybe so," Czecheta muttered. "But hear me out. I know how badly the Empire wants to expose the Republic's involvement on Bomara. Publicly. I'll confess to everything if you help my men." "Talk," Anakin said. "Make it good. Let the Bomorans and non-combatants leave. Treat the Republic soldiers fairly as prisoners of war. Help them, and I'll tell everyone we violated the treaty. And I'll tell you something else about your Jedi friends. The ones who didn't seem all that fond of you." Anakin narrowed his eyes. "The names I've heard, some bold, black human male Mace Windu, I think. Apparently lost a hand to you and has a score to settle. And another, a human male with a beard. I think his name was Kenobi. And a short, green guy. I think he's called Yoda. Do with that what you will." Anakin's thoughts churned. Obi-Wan, he's here. Not his priority, but the vision of Mustafar still burned. If I see him again, he's dead. Mace Windu? Alive? That was unexpected. The great master of the Order, now fallen to hatred and vengeance. Ironic. He was one of the ones who feared Anakin would fall to the dark side. In a way, they were right because they made it so. And Yoda, definitely a threat, but not one for today. Czecheta let out a grunt of pain as a distant explosion shook the ground. "Sounds like your troops made it inside." Anakin nodded. "Keep your word. I'll keep mine. When you broadcast your confession, tell the Republic to disarm and withdraw from Imperial space. Nothing like Bomara can happen again." "You're only delaying the inevitable," Czecheta murmured. "But I'll say it." A squad of 501st troopers emerged, their armor scorched from battle. "General," one reported. "Squad 815 reporting the battle is over. The remaining enemy forces have completely surrendered." "Well done, men. Take the Grand Marshal into custody. Our enemies are now prisoners of war, and we will abide by the treaty regarding their treatment." We're done here, for now. Yes, sir. The squad moved in, slapping binders on the marshal with practiced efficiency. One trooper paused, eyes locked on Anakin. Before you go, General, it's been an honor serving under your command. The 501st Imperial Legion will march with you wherever you lead. We will answer the call every time. At ease, soldier. Anakin gave a rare, approving nod. Once the marshal's secured in a cell, take a break. You've earned it. He stepped out into the open, watching as the 501st celebrated their victory, rounding up the remaining prisoners. Among the movement, Rex and Vet approached him. Rex with a crisp salute, Vet with a mock one that made Anakin smirk. General, Rex began, voice proud but grounded, the battle's won. The 501st suffered minimal casualties. I'd call this a complete and undeniable victory. Yet, Vet added with a grin, and let's not forget the fat reward coming our way. Anakin nodded, the corner of his mouth lifting. I'm proud of all of you. Let's head back to Lacris. Time skip. Bomara Arms Factory, Forward Command Base. Anakin approached a visibly pleased Darth Lacris. Darth Lacris, he said formally. Grand Marshal Czecheta has been defeated. The Bomara Arms Factory is now under full Imperial control. Lacris smirked slightly. You smell like smoke and blood. Let me show you something. She pulled out a hollow communicator. A grainy image flickered to life. Grand Marshal Czecheta, battered but conscious, appeared on the projection. This is Grand Marshal Czecheta, the broken man declared. My forces received supplies and intelligence from the Republic. We knowingly and illegally attacked Imperial targets under orders from the Senate. We violated the peace treaty meant to preserve our worlds. And for that, I apologize to all citizens of the galaxy. Lacris pocketed the hollow device, her eyes cold and calculating. There are protests erupting across Coruscant. Republic ships are retreating from 3 sectors. You've humiliated them. I don't know what brought you to fall, but with the hero of no fear on our side, we're fortunate. Very fortunate. Anakin's expression hardened. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about breaking them. If you like, Lacris mused, a glimmer of respect in her tone. Either way, my priority is clear. I'm establishing the Bomara Arms Factory as my planetary base of operations. My governorship wouldn't be what it is without your help. You have my gratitude and, more importantly, my masters. She activated a second hollow communicator. A new figure materialized. Darth Mar. I have been following your work closely, Mar said in his deep, resonant voice. And I must say we need more Sith like you. You've shown strength, honor, and intelligence. As promised, you have earned my respect. And as your first reward, I am placing the 501st Imperial Legion under your direct command. Their resources, ships, and personnel are now at your disposal. I hope you become another pillar of strength for the Empire. Darth Mar out. Anakin's mind turned. Everything was falling into place. More leverage. More power. His influence within the Empire was expanding. And he wasn't finished. The Bomorans have suffered long enough, Anakin said quietly. If you truly want to end the resistance for good, then show them the Empire isn't their enemy. Lacris paused. I have my own plans for these people, but I'll remember your advice. Now, I must return to ruling. There are new resistance reports. Only minor remnant cells, easily crushed. Should you choose to remain on Bomara, I may call on you again. Anakin made his way down to the lower level of the base, where he found Colonel Vrain waiting. I've received excellent reports regarding your success at the arms factory, Vrain said. And that fool Val Arjun walked right into our trap. There can be no doubt the resistance is broken. Anakin exhaled slowly. War is my craft. Victory was inevitable. The Sith are our true secret weapon, of that there's no question, Vrain nodded. Captain Rigel is compiling the final report. If I may ask one last favor, would you deliver it to him personally? Anakin gave a silent nod and made his way to the nearby office. Captain Rigel looked up as he entered, his face lighting up with awe. My lord! You've crushed our enemies. The resistance is shattered, their morale in ruins. Bomara is as good as ours. Anakin's voice was calm, composed deadly. Well-used fear and calculated intimidation are the Empire's greatest weapons. But never forget the Sith are its true power. You have my service. That is thanks enough. For decades we fought, trying to win this war, and you've done it in just a few weeks. Thank you. Anakin walked out, deep in thought. What a shame, he mused, that the Sith squander the potential of the Imperial troopers. After all, they too were trained from birth to become elite soldiers. Hell, their conditioning and discipline could rival that of the clones drilled to be the best of the best. As the founder of the Imperial Army, Anakin recited passages etched in his mind from the ancient Sith archives, sifting through knowledge gathered over more than 1,000 years. The resurrected Sith Empire had grown, unchecked, far out in the reaches of deep space. All the while, the Jedi believed the Sith were extinct just as they had in his own time, Anakin reflected bitterly. Though several self-proclaimed Sith Lords had risen to challenge the Republic, they were nothing more than fallen Jedi, not true Sith. The true Sith were the biological descendants of the ancient red-skinned species native to Korriban. That bloodline had nearly been eradicated. The true Sith were extinct save for those who had escaped into exile over 900 years ago. The very success of this reincarnated civilization was a testament to the dark brilliance of the Sith Emperor. Yet the loyalty and relentless drive of the Imperial people deserved recognition as well. In the records, one name stood out above all, Adil Vaken, the founder of the modern Imperial military. As a child, Vaken had been one of the few hundred survivors who fled the carnage and genocide on Korriban at the end of the Great Hyperspace War. The Republic and Jedi, under orders from the Chancellor, supported a plan to wipe the Sith out entirely. Men, women, children, none were spared. To evade extinction, the Sith Emperor led a small fleet of Sith ships into hyperspace, jumping blindly into the uncharted regions. The exile fleet wandered through deep space for years. It was during this time that Vaken learned navigation, eventually becoming one of the fleet's most respected pilots. Anakin couldn't help but respect that. Eventually, the survivors settled on the remote jungle world of Dromund. There, the Emperor unveiled his vision, to build a civilization of unmatched power and ruthless efficiency. He promised vengeance. He promised an empire destined to dominate the galaxy, an empire that would bring about the Republic's total destruction. The Emperor's role in this reconstruction was almost divine in scope. He withdrew into seclusion, entrusting the logistics and administration to a newly formed Dark Council and loyal Imperial leaders like Adil Vaken. While the Dark Council debated long-term strategies and fought for influence within the Sith hierarchy, the young Vaken took on the immense task of establishing order. He drafted every non-force sensitive individual of age into the Imperial military, creating the training regimen that remains the foundation of Imperial warfare to this day. With his army well prepared, Vaken led a campaign to tame the wilds of Dromund, clearing the path for the Empire's new capital to rise. According to the records, Vaken himself slew a rabid Tarantatek on the very site where the Imperial citadel now stands. Once the Empire's dominion was secured on Dromund, Vaken turned his sights to the stars. He spearheaded the construction of a new Imperial navy, dividing his forces among engineering, mining, and manufacturing sectors. From this, he laid the groundwork for a vast and ambitious undertaking, the creation of the Imperial Armada. By Vaken's own estimates, this colossal effort would take centuries to complete. He knew he would never live to see even a glimpse of its full glory. Still, he won the support of the Dark Council and committed himself fully to the cause. For this, he was granted a singular honor, the title of Grand Moff, the first ever recognized by the new Imperial military. Grand Moff Vacan would eventually fall during an Imperial campaign to conquer an alien system far in deep space. He died in battle, on the bridge of a prototype Star Destroyer, a fitting end for the first and greatest of Imperial Grand Moffs. Though Vacan was lost to history centuries ago, his legacy and vision endured, igniting the hearts of countless generations who marched beneath the Imperial banner. Vacan's story stands as a testament to the startling loyalty Imperial citizens show toward an empire where they are eternally subservient to the Sith. I believe the roots of this unwavering devotion trace back to the events of the Great Hyperspace War. Anakin's holo communicator began to beep sharply. With a swift motion, he patched the call through, and the flickering blue form of Quinn materialized before him. "My lord," Quinn said, his voice tense, "I believe we've got trouble. I overheard your entire conversation with Commander Relon." Anakin narrowed his eyes. He had anticipated this. Kalani had been ordered to monitor Quinn closely and was already en route to assist him in resolving the situation. Still, Anakin feigned confusion. "How could you have heard my conversation?" he asked coldly. "Have you been spying on me, Imperial?" "No, my lord," Quinn replied quickly. "As I told you, I've been surveilling the Jedi investigator. Apparently, she bugged Relon's quarters. While she was listening in on your exchange, I intercepted the transmission. The investigator knows everything, my lord. And considering your tendency to leave a trail of dead Jedi, she's certainly motivated." Anakin's tone grew cold and calm. "Where is she now?" Quinn straightened. "She was heading to her ship, but I had my men intercept her, cutting her off from the Republic landing bay. I've begun systematically blocking her lines of communication and escape, herding that Republic scum toward her only remaining exit, the spaceport at Sobrik. But I'm afraid there's more. My men who engaged her reported she's wielding a lightsaber. It appears this investigator is, in fact, a Jedi Knight. I advise extreme caution when confronting her." Anakin's eyes narrowed, his voice sharp. "Being careful is what got us into this mess." Quinn paused, then bowed his head slightly. "I see your point, my lord. I'll gather my remaining forces and rendezvous with you at the spaceport. We will crush this Jedi." Without delay, Anakin rushed to the spaceport, arriving just in time to see her weaving through a group of workers. As he charged, she turned and caught sight of him. With a swift gesture and a piercing look, she used the Jedi mind trick on the workers, scattering them in a panic. She then turned back to face Anakin directly, her expression resolute. "You're too late, Sith," she spat. "I already transmitted the conversation between you and Commander Relon to the Jedi Council. No Menkar has his proof. Now, Master Kar and his Padawan will track down and expose every Sith agent in the galaxy." Anakin chuckled darkly. "I don't think that's going to happen," he said, voice dipped in contempt. "Or you being around here much longer." She stood her ground, eyes steady, voice unwavering. "I will not fall today. Not to you. My intentions and motivations are clear, as is my mind. I carry purity of purpose. I seek neither thrills nor satisfaction. Unlike you, I am calm." Anakin smirked internally. This Jedi is cornered, and she knows it. Now she's just trying to get under my skin. This whole Jedi superiority complex is getting old fast. "How incredibly boring," he replied with mocking derision. "Living an enlightened life is anything but boring," she answered without flinching. "The dark side will fail you, hero with no fear. But it doesn't have to be this way. You can still return. Become a Jedi again. Save yourself. Surrender, and the Jedi Council will give you every opportunity to discover redemption." Anakin threw his head back and laughed, a deep, bitter sound echoing through the hangar. "Redemption? Don't play the fool. They'd lock me away and dig into my mind. Twist me into something I'm not." With a snarl, he ignited his crimson blade, the hum of it low and lethal as he took his stance. "Save your breath, Jedi. You're going to need it. The Jedi ignited her saber, its blue hue illuminating her determined expression. Attack me, and I will kill you. But Anakin didn't wait. He lunged without hesitation, blades crashing with a fury that sent sparks flying across the hangar. He launched into a relentless assault, each strike powerful, precise, and merciless, forcing the Jedi into a defensive retreat. As he arced his saber in a deadly swing meant to cleave her in half, she attempted a desperate vault over him, but he spun with uncanny speed, blade whipping around in a lethal curve. With one powerful strike, he shattered her saber and drove his blade into her side, slicing into one of her kidneys. She gasped in pain, collapsing to the ground, blood staining her robes. Anakin loomed over her, blade poised high, ready to end her life. She lifted her head, blood trickling from her lips, but her voice was firm. Your victory means nothing. The damage is done. The proof has been transmitted. So deal the death blow, Sith. I am at peace, knowing the greater good has been served. His blade hovered inches from her face, but before he could strike, Kalani and Quinn entered the hangar, flanked by a squad of Imperial troopers. Quinn smirked. I hate to burst your bubble, Jedi. No, that's a lie. I'm absolutely reveling in it. I intercepted your transmission. The Jedi know nothing. Kalani added with robotic precision. Probability of your impact on the galaxy has been reduced to 0%. Anakin let out a low, dark laugh. Your failure is complete. How do you feel now? She looked mildly irritated but retained her composure. Gloat all you want. It means nothing. I remain at peace. No Menkar and his Padawan will still defeat you. Anakin stepped closer, his tone turning cold and commanding. Tell me the name of No Menkar's Padawan. I will never betray her identity. I am resigned. Strike me down, I offer no further resistance. Anakin's eyes narrowed. Your thoughts betray you. You've already told me more than enough. Now, you'll just be another dead Jedi on my kill streak. She whispered her final words. There is no death. There is the Force. With a single, clean stroke, he slashed from her face to her heart, ending her life in an instant. Quinn gave a subtle nod. Two soldiers stepped forward and lifted the Jedi's body, carrying it away. How bizarre, Quinn mused. She just closed her eyes and accepted death. Anakin replied coolly. It's a Jedi thing. They believe they'll join the Force when they die. Nothing to be concerned about. Is that so? How curious. No matter. The threat is ended. Lord Barriss will be eager to learn of this development. When you're ready, I'll contact him from my office. And by the way, your droid is quite remarkable. He expedited my interception of the data she tried to transmit. Anakin nodded. That's what Kalani does. I'll be there shortly. Kalani, return to the ship. Yes, my lord, Kalani replied, turning and marching away. Excellent, Quinn said. I'll accompany you back to my barracks. Time skip, barracks. The hologram of Darth Barriss flickered into view, his imposing presence dominating the room. It's not my place, Lord Barriss, the officer said stiffly. I leave that for your apprentice to convey. Barriss waved a dismissive hand, the gesture sharp and final. Then step aside, Lieutenant. My apprentice has been standing there for quite some time now. He turned, the flickering image facing Anakin. Ah, Barriss, Anakin said coolly, nice of you to join us. Barriss narrowed his eyes. Quinn refuses to update me, insists the privilege belongs solely to you. I assume the Jedi investigator has been dealt with. She's dead, Anakin replied nonchalantly, his tone utterly devoid of concern. Barriss let out a slight breath of relief. That is reassuring. I had hoped to avoid direct confrontation with the Jedi, but circumstances forced our hand. What matters most now is that Relon's exposure has been prevented. Barriss leaned forward, his holographic form brimming with scrutiny. "And how would you assess Lieutenant Quinn's performance in all this?" "Lieutenant Quinn is an exceptional officer," Anakin answered without hesitation. "I couldn't have accomplished the mission without him." "High praise, indeed," Barriss said, his voice tinged with rare approval. He turned to Quinn. "Lieutenant, I believe you have now fully repaid the debt you owed me. I'm submitting your name for a captaincy and transmitting an executive order authorizing you to station wherever you see fit. You are dismissed." Quinn bowed low, his voice firm. "Thank you, Lord Barriss. If my actions benefit the Empire, they benefit me. I would have done the same regardless of our shared history." Turning toward Anakin, Quinn met his gaze squarely. "My lord, before I take my leave, it has been my highest honor to serve under your command. You are the embodiment of everything the Empire strives to become." Anakin extended his hand, and Quinn shook it with reverence. "The honor has been mine, Captain." Quinn gave a crisp salute. "Until we meet again, my lord." "I salute you." As he departed, Barriss spoke once more. "He'll have his hands full. There are powerful Imperials committed to keeping him down. But if he can navigate their sabotage and rise to the station he deserves, there is hope yet for our Imperial allies. If given the opportunity, he will excel," Anakin replied calmly. Barriss waved the topic away. "Either way, it's not our concern. Quinn's affairs are a mere speck compared to what lies ahead. Your presence on Bomara is no longer required. Return to your ship when ready. I will contact you there." Vet turned to Anakin, raising an eyebrow. "So, we're leaving, right? On to the next chapter in our glorious saga of domination and destruction." Anakin gave a lopsided smirk. "At the pace we're going, there won't be much of a galaxy left when we're done." Rex chimed in with a grin. "First, we celebrate with the 501 St. Weeks passed in relative calm. The 501st rejoiced in their victory, then departed at Anakin's command, returning to their homes to rest. He promised he'd summon them again when the time was right, and they obeyed without question. During this downtime, Anakin immersed himself in Bomaran engineering, devouring its secrets with uncanny speed. Within a week, he had mastered its intricacies, crafting a revolutionary suit of armor flexible, compact, yet resilient as durasteel and lighter than a feather. Later, Anakin, Vet, and Rex made their way toward the ship. Waiting for them at the ramp was Quinn, hands clasped behind his back, posture precise as ever. As the group approached, he turned to face them, eyes sharp with purpose. "My lord," Quinn began, bowing deeply. "I hope my presence is not considered an intrusion. I humbly request an audience." Anakin's tone was steady. "There's no need to beg, Quinn. Begging doesn't suit an officer." "Pardon my phrasing, my lord," Quinn corrected himself quickly. "Then allow me to speak plainly. As you know, Lord Barriss has authorized me to choose my next post freely. It's an opportunity I've long desired, though I never truly believed it would come. But aiding you on Bomara has reignited the ambition I once had, the drive to make a profound impact for the Empire." Anakin gave a rare, genuine nod. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Quinn." "That is precisely how it feels, my lord," Quinn said, voice thick with conviction. "And I see no greater honor or path more righteous than to serve you. I pledge myself to you fully." He dropped to one knee, head bowed low. "I am ready to serve in whatever capacity you deem fit." Anakin eyed him thoughtfully. "And what exactly can you do, Captain?" Before Quinn could answer, Vet interjected with a smirk. "Who cares what he can do? I could definitely use an extra pair of hands around here." Anakin turned to her, a glint in his eye. "There are some things only you can do for me, Vet." Quinn continued, unfazed. "My lord, given the chance, I will prove my worth to you. I'm an elite pilot, a seasoned strategist, and a marksman without peer. I can fly this ship, devise our battle plans, evaluate enemy threats, and eliminate them with precision. You will not find a more relentless or loyal asset. I offer my entire being, my mind, my skill, and my strength to your cause." Rex clapped a hand to Anakin's shoulder. "Come on, General. Give him a break. I say we let him in." Anakin nodded. "I'd be pleased to have you, Quinn." "The pleasure, my lord, is all mine," Quinn said as he rose. "I'll file my reassignment orders immediately upon our departure." As they boarded the ship, Anakin looked around. "Nice ship. Definitely bigger than the ones we used to take on missions." Just then, Rex narrowed his eyes, hand drifting toward his blaster. "Clankers!" he shouted, drawing his weapon. Commando's battle droids had somehow boarded. Scene break. In a dim, quiet room, a man sat cross-legged, meditating in silence. His brow furrowed, face worn by betrayal and time. "I still can't believe Skywalker betrayed the order, for them. I had the Chancellor dead to rights, but Skywalker," he exhaled sharply. "He cut off my hand. Left me for dead." His hands clenched into fists. "I should have died that day. Instead, I woke in a strange time, scavenging and begging on the streets like a common criminal." He opened his eyes dark brown, but for a flickering second, they flared a sickly yellow. "I, Mace Windu, swear vengeance on the traitor Anakin Skywalker." Back to the ship. Anakin stood in the center of the room, his presence calm but focused. After a tense explanation, Rex finally holstered his weapon and relaxed, though the edge in his voice remained. The storm was far from over.